Clerk, do we have quorum? Sergeant at Times, kindly ring the quorum bell for 10 minutes.
The quorum bell at the Senate is now on a ring mode after the Speaker directed that the bell be rung for 10 minutes to give some time for senators yet to make their way into the chamber this afternoon to do exactly that, to raise the quorum for the House to commence business this afternoon. We are away from the motion on the consideration of National Assembly amendments to the County Government's Additional Allocation Bill and the report of the Mediated Committee on Sugar Bill. The House will equally consider the report of the Mediation Committee on the Water Amendment Bill. This is National Assembly Bills number 33 of the year 2023. Our dear viewers, in the event that the bill that is seeking concurrence of the other House is rejected by the House that is considering the bill after it has been passed by the other House, say if the National Assembly had passed the water bill and upon reception of the same at the Senate rejects some of the amendments or rejects the bill and then it is returned back to the original House, usually what happens is that the Speaker of the relevant House appoints a number of members to sit in the so-called Mediated and Mediation Committee, where the members sit and agree on some of the issues that were not being accepted by members. And after the sitting of the Mediation Committee, the committee comes up with a mediated version of the report. So that is what we expect, the debate on the report of the Mediation Committee on the water amendments, this being a bill originating from the National Assembly, Bill number 33 of the year 2023. After that, the House will be getting into the Committee of the Whole, where the House as a plenary will be sitting as a committee. And this, popularly known as the Committee of the Whole, will be having the House consider a number of them. Among them is the Meteorology Bill, the National Construction Authority Amendment Bill, the Cancer Prevention and Control Amendment Bill, the Public Finance Management Bill, the Fire and Rescue Services Professionals Bill, and the County Government's Elections Laws Amendment Bill by nominated Senator Crystal Esige, among others. Lined up for debate this afternoon is the provision of sanitary towels, Senate Bills number 7 of the year 2024 by Senator Gloria Orwoba. Equally, the House is set to consider a bill by Senator Ledamo Lekina and Senator William Kisang. This bill is the County Oversight and Accountability Bill. This is Senate Bills number 3 of the year 2024. The motion on the report of the Standing Committee on Energy on its inquiry into the liquefied petroleum gas LPG explosion in Mradi area in Embakasi in Nairobi County is a motion lined up for debate this afternoon. The chairperson on the Committee of Energy, Honorable Wahome Wamatinga, on behalf of his Committee on Energy, will be seeking to have the Senate adopt the report of the Standing Committee on Matters Energy on its inquiry into the liquefied petroleum gas explosion in Mradi area in Embakasi that happened in Nairobi. And the Committee on Energy laid its report on the same on the 8th of August in the year 2024. The report of the Standing Committee on Matters Labour and Social Welfare on the inquiry into the welfare of workers in export processing zones, that is EPZs, in Mombasa and Kilifi counties, is another motion lined up for debate this afternoon. Senator Jones Maruma, pursuant to Standing Orders number 53, subsection 1, Jones Maruma is a senator for Taita Taveta County, is set to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Matters of Lands, Environment and Natural Resources regarding the operations of Tavevo Water Company in Taita Taveta County. Senator Mohamed Chute, the senator for Marsabit County, will be seeking a statement pursuant to Standing Orders of the House, Standing Orders number 53, subsection 1, from the Standing Committee on Matters Labour and Social Welfare concerning the alleged delay in the disbursement of gratuity to ward officers by the Marsabit County government. And away from the statement on the disbursement of the delay in disbursement of gratuity owed to ward officers in Marsabit, this being a statement that will be sought by the senator for Marsabit County, the senator for Kisii, Senator Richard Onyonka, will equally be seeking a statement from the Standing Committee on Matters Education regarding the termination of services of Professor Stephen Kiama Gitahi from the position of Vice Chancellor of the University of Nairobi. The senator for Vihiga County is the last senator to seek a statement on Standing Orders number 53, subsection 1. This statement by Senator Godfrey Osotsi is from the Standing Committee on Matters Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations regarding the operations of the Vihiga County Public Service Board.
Order, honorable senators. Senator Mo, just take your seat, please. Clerk, proceed to call the first order, please.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Next order.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
The Senate Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate. Today, Wednesday, the 24th of October, 2024. This is the National Treasury and Economy Planning 2024 Budget Review and Outlook paper. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay.
The Chairperson, Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation and Housing. Or any member of the committee. Majority Leader, would you lay the paper on behalf of the Chairperson, Standing Committee on Roads and Transportation?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate. Today, Wednesday, the 24th of October, 2024. This is a report of the Standing Committee on Roads, Transportation and Housing on its consideration of the Public Transport Motorcycle Regulations Bill, Senate Bill number 38 of 2023. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Statement pursuant to Standing Order 53.1, the Honorable Senator Maruma, MP. The statement is dropped. The Honorable Senator Richard Onyonka. The statement is dropped. The Honorable Senator Mohamed Chute. The statement is dropped. You're holding brief for
Chute, Senator Chute.
Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Statement to the Standing Committee on Labour. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Labour and Social Welfare regarding the delay in the disbursement of gratuity by the Marsabit County Government to ward officers who were contracted between 2017 and 2022. In the statement, the committee should, 1, provide details of all ward officers contracted by Marsabit County during the period 2017 to 2022, specifying their duration of service and the total gratuity owed to them by the Marsabit County Government. 2, explain the reasons for the prolonged delay in the disbursement of gratuity to these wards officers and provide timelines for the settling of the outstanding gratuity claims. And finally, state the measures being taken by the county government and address those delays and ensure timely disbursement of gratuity in the future. Signed, Senator Mohammed Chute, MP, Senator for Marsabit County.
Senator Osotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to request for a statement on the operations of Vihiga County Public Service Board. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 53.1 to seek a statement from the Standing Committee on Devolution and Intergovernmental Relations regarding the operations of Vihiga County Public Service Board. Mr. Speaker, sir, Regulation 25(1)B of the Public Finance Management County Government Regulation 2015 caps county government expenditure on wages and benefits at 35% of the total county revenue. The Auditor General's report on the Vihiga County Executive for the years ended 30th June 2021 and 2022 raised concerns about the over-expenditure on wages by the Vihiga County government. These wage payments were processed through both the Integrated Personnel and Payroll Database, the so-called IPPD system, and manual payroll systems. The key issues identified in these reports include delays in assigning the unified payroll numbers to staff, recruitment into designations that do not align with the scheme of service or the IPPD system, and the employment of staff on short-term contract of less than 6 months. There are also allegations of nepotism in the officers serving in various offices in the county executive, which is perpetuated by this county service board, where they have employed their relatives. In the statement, the committee should, number 1, list all individuals employed by the Vihiga County Public Service Board, both on contract and permanent and pensionable terms from the financial year 2021-2022 to date, indicating their position, department, county or sub-county of residence. Number 2, provide a breakdown of individuals who have been converted from contract terms to permanent and pensionable status, stating whether the due process was followed in each case. Number 3, provide the needs assessment reports, job advertisements, interview analysis sheets, employment agreements or contracts, and all related documentation for the officers employed from the financial year 2021-2022 to date. Number 4, explain the reasons for the continued overemployment by the County Public Service Board despite concerns raised in the Auditor General's report and the Controller of Budget reports about over-expenditure on wages and salaries. Number 5, provide copies of resolutions from the County Assembly of Vihiga that have halted various employment activities due to the high wage bill and include recommendations from the Office of the Auditor General and the Controller of Budget. And lastly, inquire into allegation of nepotism within the County Public Service Board, senior county officials, and the recruitment and promotion of staff within the executive, and state the actions taken to address the recurring audit concerns regarding overemployment and ethnic imbalance in Vihiga County. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Fernandi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the indulgence. Statement on an issue. Chemngetich shattering women marathon world record and super performance of the Kenyan team at the Chicago Marathon on Sunday, 13 October 2024. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise pursuant to Standing Order 52.1 to make a statement on issue of general topical concern and national importance, namely Ruth Chemngetich incredible performance in shattering the women's marathon world record and the overall super performance of the Kenyan team at Chicago Marathon on Sunday, 13 October 2024. Once again, Mr. Speaker, sir, our athletes have brought glory to our country. Ruth Chemngetich broke the women's marathon world record at the same event where the late legend Kevin Kiptum set the men's marathon world record last year in Chicago. So, Speaker, sir, and he ran under 2 hours, Mr. Speaker, the late Kevin Kiptum. So, Speaker, sir, Ruth Chemngetich has become the first Kenyan woman athlete to break the 2 hours, 10 minutes barrier in marathon running. She set the new women's world record at 2 hours, 9 minutes and 56 seconds, a gap of almost 2 minutes over the previous records of 2 hours, 11 minutes and 53 seconds, set by Ethiopia's Gitse Aseva at the 2023 Berlin Marathon. This victory also marked Chemngetich's third consecutive win at the Chicago Marathon in one of the premier marathons across the world. Mr. Speaker, sir, this year's Chicago Marathon was also a time for remembrance. The organizers respectfully observed a moment of silence at the starting line to honor the late maestro legend Kevin Kiptum, the men's marathon world record holder. We appreciate the Ruth Chemngetich for dedicating her win and record to Kevin Kiptum also. May his soul continue to rest in peace. Mr. Speaker, sir, in the men's marathon, John Korir brought further glory to our country, winning with a personal best of 2 hours, 2 minutes and 04 seconds, the second fastest time ever recorded in Chicago. He was followed by Ethiopia's Mohamed Essa, who finished 2 hours, 4 minutes and 39 seconds, and our own, who is also my very good friend and my neighbor, Amos Kipruto, in third, and this is the source of champions, Nandi County, at 2 hours, 4 minutes and 50 seconds. Other Kenyans, Vincent Chemngetich and Daniel Ebenyo, also finished strongly. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is disheartening to witness a section of the media across the world castigating unwarranted doubts and aspersions on our athletes, questioning their integrity and accusing them of doping without following due process. These are established standards and procedures, including anti-doping tests conducted before and after major competitions. Mr. Speaker, sir, Ruth Chemngetich's consistent performance, winning the Chicago Marathon 3 times in a row, is a statement of her dedication, resilience, and passion for the sport. The harassment she received from media, especially Western media and some individual outlets, after breaking the world record should be condemned in the strongest terms possible. And we expect the government of Kenya, including Ministry of Sports and Athletics Kenya, to do the same. Instead of being vilified, she should be celebrated for hard-earned victory and consistency over the years. We expect also to listen to women's voice on this matter. Mr. Speaker, sir, I call upon the Ministry of Sports, Athletics Kenya, National Olympic Committee, NOC, to issue a strong rebuttal and defend the integrity of our athletes from such baseless media accusation. Furthermore, I urge Anti-Doping Agency of Kenya, ADAC, to intensify its vigilance, eradicate rogue agents and coaches who tarnish our athletes' careers and the name of athletics by encouraging doping, sometimes unknowingly. I also call upon our athletes to remain clean and report any suspicious individuals or activities in their training camps, Mr. Speaker. So, Speaker, sir, Athletics Kenya, like any other federations, must hold elections for its officials to bring in fresh leadership and professionalism, promoting transparency and accountability. Similarly, I urge the Football Kenya Federation Election Board, which the campaigns are ongoing, to conduct its election. And my friend, one of my friends is running, is called Alila. Elections according to its constitution and in adherence to Kenyan laws without hiding behind the FIFA statutes. Mr. Speaker, sir, in conclusion, I congratulate our athletes for their outstanding performance at the Chicago Marathon and other major global marathons that happened in the weekend. I also commend Kenya's rising football stars, our starlets, the under-20 team, for qualifying for 2025 under-20 African Cup of Nations. And I don't know whether Bunge football team will qualify all the same, Mr. Speaker. Additionally, I extend my best wishes to junior starlets who are currently participating in the FIFA under-17 Women's World Cup in Dominican Republic. We assure them of our unwavering commitment and support as they continue representing our nation on the global stage and in the sports arena. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Next order.
Order number 8, motion, consideration of the National Assembly amendments to the County Government's Additional Allocations Bill, Senate Bills number 19 of 2024. Resumption of debate interrupted on Tuesday, 22nd October 2024. Voting.
Clerk, do you have the requisite quorum?
Yes,
We do? Thank you. Now, honorable senators, I will now proceed to put the question that the National Assembly amendments to the County Government's Additional Allocations Bill, Senate Bills number 19 of 2024, be now considered. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? Honorable senators, I'm going to put the question. I'm going to put the question because clearly most of the senators were not following this. Okay? Now, we have concluded debate. That is the consideration of the National Assembly amendments to the County Government's Additional Allocations Bill, Senate Bills number 19 of 2024. Okay? Honorable senators, I hope it's clear to you what the question is all about. Is it clear to you? Now, I will allow the majority leader who moved this petition to explain before I put the question so that we make the right decision.
Mr. Speaker, this is a fairly straightforward matter, which I wish my colleagues to understand. It's not my report, actually. It's Senator Ali Robbers and Senator Faki. Actually, it's you, Senator Faki, who should be explaining. And no, I don't see any other member. Oh, and Senator Alwale and Eddie is members of Budget and Finance Committee. What they did is that they rejected the amendments of the National Assembly. That's what is in our report. So what you are voting for, when you vote yes, you are agreeing with the rejection by our committee. If you vote nay, it means you don't agree. That's why I want to plead with colleagues that we agree with the amendments, with the report of our Budget and Finance Committee, which is rejecting the National Assembly.
It's procedural. Yes, Majority Leader. Order, Honorable Senators. Senator Mazayo.
Sorry.
Senator Fokilifi. Have your seat. Yes, Majority
Okay,
Leader.
yeah. Mr. Speaker, having seen how the question that you put is framed, then the advice to the House, because the question is, what is in question is not the report of the committee, it is the amendments of the Assembly. Therefore, we reject them. We vote no, then that takes us to mediation.
So, Honorable Senators, I will now put the question that the National Assembly amendments to the County Government's Additional Allocations Bill, Senate Bills number 19 of 2024, be now considered. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? Nay. The nays have it. Next order.
Order number 9, motion, report of the Mediation Committee on the Sugar Bill, National Assembly Bills number 34 of 2022. Resumption of debate interrupted on Tuesday, 22nd October 2024.
At interruption of the debate on Tuesday, 22nd, the Honorable Senator Fernandi was on his feet and had a balance of 13 minutes. You may proceed, Senator Cherokee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think I was on clause number 19, and I want to continue to thank your office, Mr. Speaker, for the support through the Secretariat and also our colleagues in the National Assembly on this mediation version of the Sugar Bill of 2024. I think I want to assure farmers across, especially our sugarcane growing farmers from Migori, from Kwale, from Nandi, from Kericho, from Kakamega, from Busia, Kisumu, and wherever they are, including Trans Nzoia, Mr. Speaker, that their interest, this is a farmers-based interest mediation version of the bill on sugar bill. And I want to thank also the majority leader and minority leader for ensuring that we got nominated to the mediation committee. And we shall not forget their favor, Mr. Speaker, before the eyes of the Lord. Mr. Speaker, in clause number 19, we did agree that a miller shall not purchase sugar crop from or accept sugar crop delivered by a grower, and a grower shall not sell or deliver sugar crop to a miller unless the grower is registered or has a forced valid supply agreement with the miller. The reasoning, Mr. Speaker, one of the reason is that you find most of the sugar companies, they don't do what we call cane development. So we are protecting from what we call cane poaching, where a factory develops sugar of a particular farmer, but because of sugar pricing and prevailing factors, they might end up encouraging what we call cane poaching. And you find if a factory X has developed cane development maybe in Vihiga or in Nandi or in Kericho, they will not have raw material. That factory ends up closing because of cane poaching, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, whenever there is a cane development by a particular farmer, there must be an agreement between the miller and the grower to ensure that we avoid what we call cane poaching. And we did, Mr. Speaker, substitute the zoning into sugar catchment area. The definition of sugar catchment area in clause number 2 on sugar bill amended version of the mediated is we are saying sugar catchment area will be used for purposes of cane development. Cane development members and colleague senators through the Speaker will mean processing, researching, delivery, growing, and others. And also for purposes of elections to Kenya Sugar Board. And those cluster areas, Mr. Speaker, for example, we did, in our schedule, we did provide how it will look like, Mr. Speaker, and I'll be sharing in members in minds before I close these remarks. Mr. Speaker, another one is within the sugar growing area that they can deliver. And also, if, for example, sugar factories are doing maintenance, be it Chemelil, Moroni, West Kenya, Butali, West Valley, Mr. Speaker, Kibos, Naitiri, among other areas, when they are doing sugar maintenance closing, the Kenya Sugar Board shall give them an approval to deliver their sugar when it is mature and ready to another sugar catchment area where they can deliver. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, this one is very important, that clause number 19, that will ensure, Mr. Speaker, that we did agree to ensure that we protect farmers and protect both millers and sugar growing or sugar farmers. So, Speaker, one of the critical issues also I want to bring to the attention is also we did the issue of nomination to Kenya Research Institute. We have agreed that universities will nominate members to the board with extensive sugar research so that our farmers continue to benefit from extension services. The sugar number 3, we have agreed on the issue of cess. On the issue of sugar cess in clause number 38, we did amend. You remember members of National Assembly wanted around 4 billion that will go to Kenya Sugar Board to go to KERA. We said KERA and KURA, up to as at now, they are not constitutional bodies, Mr. Speaker, and that there is a matter in court that I don't want to delve. That is why we say that money should remain with Kenya Sugar Board in consultation with farmers, Mr. Speaker. 2 weeks ago, I was in Masab. Masab sub-county in Nandi County is growing more sugarcane. I was trying to use a road between Kabiemit through Lolgeringe to Kamamud, Mr. Speaker, in Kabiet. The road is impassable. Yet tractors are destroying that are carrying. County government of Nandi has been given millions and millions of shillings through sugar cess, Mr. Speaker. Either by Kibos, by Moroni, by West Kenya, by West Valley, the newest factory from Kericho. But there is nothing to smile about, Mr. Speaker. You come to Taunet, all the way these areas, Mr. Speaker, including Kapkulumben, all the way to Mombwa, the neighbor to Aaron Cheruya, the roads are impassable. Yet there is a lot of money that is paid through cess. Mr. Speaker, in the wisdom of the committee which you appointed, we thought the cess should go back to Kenya Sugar Board so that they can assist in maintenance of infrastructure. In fact, the definition members, we did not say only roads. We said, and including Homa Bay, we said that bridges, ensure maraming, ensure grading, and access so that farmers, including in Kakamega County, when we are taking our to either Butali or to either Mumias, Mr. Speaker, that the roads are well maintained, and therefore I want to inform the House that money will never go to Kera, because members of National Assembly had an opportunity of taking advantage of the 40% that normally goes to Kera, Mr. Speaker. Number 4, Mr. Speaker, is on the issue of appointing boards to the private factories, Mr. Speaker, and we are against it. Under the Companies Act, Mr. Speaker, under the Companies Act, Mr. Speaker, you know very well that you cannot have an outsider sitting in a private company. And therefore, we did reject to have a farmer or anybody to sit in a private company's board, because it is against the Companies Act, it is against best business practices, Mr. Speaker, which is, we did agree and we did delete, Mr. Speaker. We did introduce the clause number 19, just to rectify something, Mr. Speaker, is that we did introduce clause number 19A, and I think members should listen to this very carefully. And we did say a grower may deliver cane outside the sugar cane zone or catchment area, provided that the grower I had explained, Mr. Speaker, and I think this one is still. So we are substituting the sugar zone to sugar catchment area to mean, and I think Kwale, is it Kilifi clause, it's part of the catchment. And I'm happy the senator who was our host over the weekend is in the House, Senator Isa Juma, Mr. Speaker. And therefore, I think Kilifi and Kwale should be the biggest beneficiary in that region. Mr. Speaker, with another miller, may enter into a contract of cane supply with another miller if the mill is located within the same sugar cane. And I think it is still similar issue, Mr. Speaker. In the issue of new schedule, and it is important because farmers from Kericho and Nandi, and at that time, they made the Agriculture Committee in my presence and majority leader. We did agree that we are going to come up with ensure, zoning. Mr. Speaker, largely, if you read the Oparanya report, this sugar bill we have borrowed largely from the Oparanya report. For us who come from Western region, that report is what we borrowed heavily. And even when we worked across, Mr. Speaker, when we did public participation, across the country, Mr. Speaker, we realized that the farmers were proposing in line with the Oparanya report, Governor Oparanya report, in the last session, Mr. Speaker. And that is why we came up with the sugar catchment areas, Mr. Speaker, where we were proposing in the sugar catchment. And I've said sugar catchment areas will be for cane development, and, Mr. Speaker, will be for the purposes of elections to Kenya Sugar Board. And in fact, Mr. Speaker, I know farmers will ask, for example, Nandi will be part of the central region. When you come to this other part, it will be in this other part. We are proposing that election to board, directors to Kenya Sugar Board must be rotational. Finally, Speaker, on the new schedule on sugar catchment areas, Central will cater for Kisumu, Southern Nandi, and Kericho. You remember in Nandi, we don't have any milling sugar factory. So we rely on Kibos, Moroni, Chemelil, we rely on West Kenya, and we rely on West Valley in Kericho County. On Upper Western, we'll have Bungoma, Kakamega, excluding Mumias area, Trans Nzoia, Uasin Gishu, and Northern Nandi. For us in Northern Nandi, Naitiri and Butali will be nearer. On Lower Western, we'll have Mumias, Busia, and Siaya. On Southern sugar catchment area, we'll have Migori, Homa Bay, Kisii, and Narok. And in Coastal, we'll have Kwale, Tana River, and Lamu. Those were proposed catchment areas that we hope our farmers will be comfortable with, because, Mr. Speaker, you go into a county, they don't have a factory. For example, Nandi, we don't have a sugar milling factory. We only depend in Kakamega, Naitiri, and Butali. When you come to the other side, we depend with West Valley, Kibos, Chemelil, Moroni, and West Kenya to deliver our cane and ensuring. Mr. Speaker, I largely, looking at this report, I want to ask my colleagues, let us support this mediated version of sugar bill for the benefit of our sugar farmers. Mr. Speaker, I have seen Senator Sifuna, he had proposed something about sugar development levy fund. As a committee, we thought it wise that we introduce tax, but will be managed by finance bill, because finance bill will be introduced regularly in financial year. The reason we want to introduce sugar development levy fund is also to cushion and encourage our local milling factories to ensure that we take care of industrial sugar. I know the argument will be, if that industrial sugar will be levied, they must transfer taxes to confectionaries like biscuits and other that is used in industrial sugar processing. But I think it was wise to cushion, because we should also look at inward. We should look inward Like the way Donald Trump is saying, let's make America great. And you remember, he denied business to China at the expense of America. So I want to encourage the House, let us protect our local sugar factories. That issue of sugar development levy fund, Mr. Speaker, we wanted to zero rate, but out of the wisdom, we did decide to introduce at least the minimum taxes, Mr. Speaker. And I hope the manufacturers or the importers of industrial sugar will not transfer that weight to the consumers of confectionaries and mothers. Mr. Speaker, looking at this is the best we could do. I hope by the end of this year, the His Excellency the President should assent. I call upon my Greece, let us agree. Our sugarcane farmers are waiting. The one for coffee will come. The one for milk will come. The one for tea will come, Mr. Speaker. Let us assist our farmers. Our farmers are waiting. The sugarcane farmers, this is their redemption, Mr. Speaker. This is the right time to do these sugar sector reforms for the benefit, Mr. Speaker, and kill this animal called AFA. We need to have our own directorate of sugar. The AFA one has killed most of the crops, so that even coffee, they can have their own directorate, sugar can have their own directorate. We have T-Board, Kenya T-Board Authority. We now have many under, Mr. Speaker, even the one in Coast, nuts, even the mang bills and many others, Mr. Speaker, so that farmers can be handled as best as their crop. Mr. Speaker, with those very many remarks, allow me to say to support this mediated version of the bill and call upon colleagues to support so that we can expeditiously be dispensed off with and allow farmers to go back to the business of tilling and ensuring that we have enough sugar, Mr. Speaker, so that sugar is very critical. You know, Mr. Speaker, I'm so used to sugar nowadays. You know, there are sugar barons, there are sugar daddies, there are sugar mummies, and that is life. With any remarks, I support, Mr. Speaker.
It's Senator Sifuna.
Sugar Senator.
Honorable Speaker, I really didn't want to interrupt the Senator for Nandi, but I didn't quite get what he said about how the committee dealt with my amendment, because when I read the report at page 10, it says the committee unanimously rejected the proposal to exempt industrial sugar from the sugar development levy, saying that there is no justification to exempt only imported industrial sugar from paying the sugar development levy, while all other imported sugar is subjected to the levy. Honorable Speaker, honestly, I have to express my disappointment with the mediation committee, because I am in the unique position where I am the senator of the city of Nairobi, but I'm also a sugarcane farmer. That unique position allows me to have perspective of the various interests that we were trying to protect, unlike my colleagues from upcountry, whose perspective was limited, in my view, and very respectfully submit to the perspective of the farmer and the local sugar industries. Honorable Speaker, I took time to have a meeting with the mediation committee, at least our representatives from the Senate. The people who are members of this mediation committee are people that are known personally to me. I consider them my friends. The Honorable Peter Masara, who will be hosting me as his SG in his constituency on Saturday, Honorable Speaker. Senator Richard Onyonka, the Honorable Walter Awino, Member of Parliament for Awendo, is a personal friend. And of course, my mother's Member of Parliament, the Honorable John Makali, Member of Parliament for Kandui constituency. Honorable Speaker, I have even more friends on this committee, including the Member of Parliament for Lugari, the Honorable Nabi Nabwera, who I know is very passionate about these things. What I try to persuade them, Honorable Speaker, to see is that there has to be a distinction in the way in which we treat imported regular table sugar and imported industrial sugar. When we are talking about protecting our farmers, the threat is not caused or does not originate from industrial sugar. In fact, Honorable Speaker, it is foolhardy to say that you're protecting local industries when you apply this levy to industrial sugar, knowing very well that in Kenya today, there is no single industry that produces white industrial sugar. So I was hoping that a distinction would be made, because, Honorable Speaker, as a senator for Nairobi, the industries that we are talking about account for 60% of all employment of the people of Nairobi. These are big stakeholders for city senators such as myself. If there is no local production of a commodity, you cannot claim to protect local industry when that local industry does not exist. In fact, I pleaded with the mediation committee that they even allow a time frame, like it can be a sunset clause that immediately the country is able to produce or to have capacity to produce white industry sugar, then maybe we can introduce this levy. Honorable Speaker, this white industry sugar, the reason why I was seeking that exemption is that it is used in just about everything that we consume here in Nairobi and across the country. It is used in baked goods, confectionaries, that is sweets, juices, sodas, and beer, Honorable Speaker. And over the period of time that we have seen, although the Senator for Nandi was pleading that the industry should not pass this cost, I can assure you that no manufacturer is going to take this cost upon themselves. You are going to see a rise in the cost of these basic commodities that I thought we would try and cushion Kenyans, especially because, Honorable Speaker, we are still discussing the high cost of living. There has to be that balance. And when I appeared before the members of the Senate who are members of this committee, I thought that I had provided that justification, that we needed that exemption just to protect industry. I am also aware that if you look at both manifestos of the Azimio coalition and the manifesto of the Kenya Kwanza government, we leaned heavy on industrialization, that it was a desire of both of these coalitions to put in place policies that encourage investment. Honorable Speaker, over the period of time that I have been a senator here, the past 2 financial years, because of multiple increases in taxation, you speak to many of these factories, they will tell you their sales have dropped. They have experienced drops in sales because of incessant increases of prices due to new taxation every financial year. And I suspect that this is also going to put the pressure further on these manufacturers because, Honorable Speaker, it is going to increase the cost of production. When the cost of production increases and then we see higher prices for these commodities, we will see lower sales, which directly translate to shrinking employment in terms of the number of people that can be hired. Factories in Nairobi here, Honorable Speaker, that have closed down entire production lines because they can no longer manage to sustain the cost of wages in those factories. So, Honorable Speaker, whereas I supported wholeheartedly the sugar bill, especially from the perspective of the farmer, I had hoped that at least on this particular single issue, the committee would have accommodated the manufacturers as well, so that as we encourage and develop our capacity to produce this commodity locally, then there is really no need for us to lump this together. I had a conversation, Honorable Speaker, with the Honorable Emmanuel Wangwe, who's my neighbor up country, and also a friend, and was the chair of this committee. And his explanation is that there have been instances within the industry where people actually import regular sugar under the guise of industrial sugar. And my argument to him then was that, yes, in just about every endeavor in this country, there are people who will try to be clever and circumvent rules and so on and so forth, but it should not be a cause to mete out punishment on the entire industry. So let it be what it is. I am hoping that the members of the committee who have not spoken will be a little bit clearer than the Senator of Nandi about what he was saying the committee was proposing to do with industrial sugar in light of the matters that I have raised, Honorable Speaker. I don't know if he meant that when the next finance bill is brought up that there will be an exemption, or that I really didn't get the reasoning of the committee, and I'm hoping that somebody will clear that up for me. Other than that, Honorable Speaker, I am in full support of all the other amendments, because these are proposals that we supported here on the floor during debate on the actual bill, and I'm hoping that it will now go to assuage the situation on the ground. I can also confirm, Honorable Speaker, that the roads, especially around my rural home, are in a terrible state, Honorable Speaker, and we're hoping that once this levy, now that you have decided that you must take it, Honorable Senator Cherargei, we will be seeing an improvement in the county roads because they will be having resources to be able to repair and maintain these roads. Honorable Speaker, with those many remarks, I thank you and I support.
Senator Issa.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kunipa fursa hii na mimi niweze kuchangia. Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi kama seneta wa jimbo la kaunti ya Kwale, kwa niaba ya watu wa Kwale, mimi naunga mkono hii sugar bill, kwa sababu hii bill kusema la kweli, kama sasa kule kwetu Ramisi kuna matatizo mengi sana, hasa kwenye kile kiwanda cha Ramisi hivi sasa. Mheshimiwa Spika, hivi karibuni tulikuwa na tatizo kwamba wafanyaji kazi katika lile kiwanda waligoma kwa sababu usimamizi mbaya wa kile kiwanda. Wafanyaji kazi wana karibu miezi 5, miezi 6 hawajapata mishahara. Mheshimiwa Spika, hii bill itakapokuwa tumepitisha sawa sawa, regulation nyingi ambazo katika nchi hii zitaweza kusimamiwa vizuri, kwa sababu kuna watu wengine wanaleta sukari ndani ya nchi kutoka nchi za nje, sukari za rahisi sana, ambapo sukari zetu katika nchi yetu ya Kenya huwa hazina bei, hazina thamani. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa hivyo mimi Mheshimiwa Spika, kama alivyosema seneta wa Cherengei, mimi namunga mkono. Seneta Sifuna alivyozungumza namunga mkono kwa yale marekebisho ambayo atakafanyika. Na hii sekta sukari, Mheshimiwa Spika, tuna shida nyingi sana, especially kama kule sehemu ya Kwale hivi sasa. Hata juzi karibuni pia nilisema katika mkutano, kama huyu mwekezaji wa sukari ameshindwa na hichi kiwanda, basi kujie mwekezaji mwingine ambaye ataweza kuendesha kile kiwanda, wananchi wapate manufaa. Kwa sababu sasa hii kile unavyosikia, baada ya miezi 2, miezi 3 unasikia kuna mgomo, ni kwa sababu ya usimamizi mbaya. Kwa hivyo hii bili mimi naunga mkono sana, kisha sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa haya machache, asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Senator Eddie.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to contribute on this report on the sugar bill. Mr. Speaker, yesterday I indeed sought a quorum problem so that I could be able to ensure that many people, as many senators as possible, can be able to contribute on this bill today. Because I think it's the most important bill that you can support this year, Mr. Speaker. I think that in every home here, Mr. Speaker, there is a cup of tea waiting for people in the morning or in the evening. Whether you're taking your tea with milk, like my friend, Senator Redama Olekina, who cannot do his tea without milk, or whether you like just strong tea, like my friend, Senator Arun Cheriot, who is trying to keep up good weight to play for us in Yala. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you want to try and have some sugar in it. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, the development of the sugarcane industry is a very, very important one. And Mr. Speaker, the reason why I want to support this report in the form that it is in right now, Mr. Speaker, is because there are a number of clauses that have really, really impressed me in the different sections of the bills the bill that has come as mediated, Mr. Speaker, and particularly because for the first time, Mr. Speaker, we are seeing a bill that in the sugarcane industry is actually farmer-centric, that is trying to solve as many problems of the farmer as possible, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the first thought that I had today was to actually celebrate the bill in general with my friend Martin Dima. Martin Dima is the current MD of Sony Sugar, which is a signature industry in that part of the region where I come from. And Sony Sugar is one of the iconic sugar industries and millers that have given a lot of hope to our people in Migori County and in the larger southern Nyanza region. And I think that this will also be celebrated by Jared Kopio, Mr. Speaker, who is the chairperson of the same industry, given the challenges that farmers in Migori County have faced, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also must pride in the fact that Section 3 and Section 4, Mr. Speaker, of this bill seek to rethink the entire Kenya Sugar Board. Mr. Speaker, perhaps I should also share with you that one of the longest-serving Kenya Sugar Board directors who used to represent farmers and then rose very quickly to be a chairman of the board, used to be the former governor of Migori County, Governor Okothobado. And Governor Okothobado actually worked very hard during this time in the Kenya Sugar Board to be able to establish private millers, particularly the private millers in Homa Bay, that is Ndiwa, the Sukari industry, as well as in the Transmara region, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, the reason why I celebrate this section of the bill is because by rethinking this Kenya Sugar Board, Mr. Speaker, there is a very keen and deliberate effort by the two committees, the committees from the Senate and the committee from the National Assembly, to try and make Kenya Sugar Board be able to make sugar industry commercially viable. Why do I say this, Mr. Speaker? Because for the first time, we are seeing the regulation, development, and promotion of the industry being a function of a board. Number two, Mr. Speaker, we have seen a proposal that this board is also going to coordinate the activities of the value chain actors in the industry. There is nothing that can make the sugar industry as economically and commercially viable as being able to coordinate the activities of value chain actors, Mr. Speaker, because sometimes these value chain actors, for instance, if you think about the jaggery millers, Mr. Speaker, when left to no regulation, to no development, to no promotion, Mr. Speaker, then they cannot be able to make a sense of commercial viability of running good industries. This sugar board also is going to make sure that it facilitates equitable access to benefits to farmers from government. And I'll elaborate on that when I look at some of the proposals in terms of benefit that will come from government to the farmers and as well as the millers, Mr. Speaker. I'm also seeing, Mr. Speaker, that this bill under Section 4 establishes one role of the Kenya Sugar Board as establishing linkages with government agencies and research institutions. For the first time, Mr. Speaker, we are seeing a Kenya Sugar Board proposed to be able to enable farmers to do scientific approach to cane farming, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I'm also seeing that the board will be able to monitor any distortion in the sugar market. I know my brother, Senator Sifuna, was very keen on the levy that he was talking about, the importation of refined sugar, Mr. Speaker. But sometimes, Mr. Speaker, importation can cause a lot of distortion in the market, and we see that Kenya Sugar Board can be able to regulate that, Mr. Speaker. The most juicy part of this, Mr. Speaker, is that for the first time, Kenya Sugar Board will work alongside Kenya Sugar Research and Training Institute under Section 28, 2AB, where Kenya Sugar Research and Training Institute will play an advisory role to the Kenya Sugar Board, Mr. Speaker. We remember that the defunct Kenya Sugar Board, Mr. Speaker, did not have proper scientific basis of being able to develop the industry, Mr. Speaker. I also celebrate the fact that the board has been mandated under Section 33, Mr. Speaker, to establish sugar industry inspectors. Mr. Speaker, this is wonderful. Because if you think about some of the bedeviling problems in the sugar industry that are affecting farmers, Mr. Speaker, is the disconnect between the Kenya Sugar Board and farmers' plight at the inspection level of the entire value chain. For instance, Mr. Speaker, this bill establishes the crop inspector. What kind of sugarcane, what kind of seed cane should a farmer be able to plant? Number two, Mr. Speaker, there is an establishment of factory inspector, Mr. Speaker. One of the problems that farmers face in places like Migori and the southern Nyanza region is that you harvest your cane, take it to the factory, and then when you get to the factory, you are hoping that your cane is weighing so well. Then at the factory, there is weighing machines that have already been doctored in a way that you cannot be able to make the best out of your sugar cane. So, Mr. Speaker, a factory inspector should be able to deal with the problem of farmers in terms of weighing to make sure that they're getting proper payment for their cane, Mr. Speaker. There's also warehouse and transportation inspector, Mr. Speaker, has been established under Section 33. And, Mr. Speaker, this is also fantastic because one of the biggest problems that the sugarcane growers are facing is the fact that things like tractors, Mr. Speaker, have caused a lot of accidents in regions where sugarcane farmers are coming from, because there's no inspector to look at the entire warehouse and transportation chain for sugarcane growers, Mr. Speaker, such that sometimes in places like Migori, Homa Bay, Muhoroni, you will find that at night when people are traveling, Mr. Speaker, you find tractors that have been left by different millers on the road because they are in pathetic condition and therefore ending up claiming a lot of lives, Mr. Speaker. So it is wonderful that we are going to have an inspector who can be able to look at that entire chain, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, close to this is Section 38 of this bill, Mr. Speaker, that has talked broadly about sugarcane development levy that is tied together with Section 39 that end up establishing the Sugarcane Development Fund. Mr. Speaker, for the first time, this fund used to be in the defunct Sugarcane Board, but it was not broadened enough to be able to help the plight of farmers. And Mr. Speaker, this one establishes some ways of being able to support farmers when they have planted their sugarcane and they've got contract with millers. And after that, Mr. Speaker, you can be able to benefit in different ways. For instance, Mr. Speaker, I would be happy when Migori farmers are able to get funds in terms of bonuses and loans from different millers where this levy, or rather this sugarcane development levy and sugarcane development fund can be able to allow millers to give them some bonuses and loans. If you think about it, Mr. Speaker, some of these problems that we have for farmers is that sugarcane can take up to 18 months to mature. Between that time, the farmer will have spent so much time in the farm, yet, Mr. Speaker, they have problems with school fee. Sometimes they have got medical problems that sometimes need a lot of money, and sometimes it's so difficult for them to get loans in traditional banks or any other source of financing. If this fund is made to function, Mr. Speaker, they can now go to their millers and even seek for vouchers to be able to take their kids to school as they wait for harvesting, so that at the end of the day when they harvest, they can be able to pay back when they're cut in the price and cost of, in the price and benefit they will get once they sell their sugarcane, Mr. Speaker. There is also a very important function that this will help with, which is what I've seen in Migori County, particularly in Awendo areas and Rapogi areas, where farmers sometimes are forced to cut their sugarcane early and harvest them, then sell them to jaggery millers, Mr. Speaker, because they don't have money. That will allow farmers, this fund will now allow farmers to wait until their sugarcane mature well and be able to give them the best returns. And Mr. Speaker, lastly on this sugar development fund, Mr. Speaker, the hardest part of sugarcane is developing seed cane. Currently in the sugar industry, Mr. Speaker, seed cane is being developed by Calro. And you know that Calro is taxed with many other seed development, Mr. Speaker. We don't have an industry-specific function in terms of helping with seed cane development, Mr. Speaker. This fund, combined with Section 28 and 27 that establishes Kenya Sugar Research and Training Institute, will enable for the first time the sugar industry to be able to develop seed cane for farmers that will be able to make farmers have the best seeds possible. So this is a very laudable section of this bill. And Mr. Speaker, I think that one of the areas that regulations that will be furthered from this bill should look at is the problem of leasing in a more broad way to combine with this idea of the Sugar Development Fund. Because, Mr. Speaker, the idea of forcing millers to lease their milling, facilities, Mr. Speaker, is because there's a number of problems that do come about when there's no proper management, Mr. Speaker. And I think that this fund will help us solve that problem. Because, Mr. Speaker, for you to have a good miller, they use what we call efficiency ratio, Mr. Speaker. The efficiency ratio, Mr. Speaker, is whereby if you put 10 tons of canes and try to crush it as a miller, Mr. Speaker, you must be able to get 1 ton of sugar, Mr. Speaker. That's not a management problem.
That's an efficiency problem, Mr. Speaker, that you should not force millers to lease their facilities just because of a management problem, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, another problem that is facing millers with regards to these leasing problems is the issue of pricing. Because the issue of pricing, Mr. Speaker, has always been left to importation distortion of sugar, Mr. Speaker. But the good thing about this bill, Mr. Speaker, is that for the first time, it has established Sugar Research and Training Institute that will be able to help us think about technologies that can be able to think about sucrose content of cane, Mr. Speaker. I think that if this bill goes through, Mr. Speaker, going forward, the sugar industry should not use importation and price of sugar as the price of cane, but should use sucrose content as the tool for being able to price cane for farmers, Mr. Speaker. If you are a farmer from one farm and have got good sucrose content, Mr. Speaker, you should be able to earn more than a farmer who has got less sucrose content, Mr. Speaker. This will deal with the duality problem of the leasing problem because of inefficiency of sugarcane industries, and also, Mr. Speaker, it will help to deal with the general issue of pricing of the cane, the cane prices for farmers, Mr. Speaker. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I want to laud the fact that this bill has also been able to propose, say, a tribunal to deal with disputes in the industry, Mr. Speaker, the sugarcane industry, Mr. Speaker, under Section 44. Mr. Speaker, the number of disputes that we are seeing in the sugarcane industry, Mr. Speaker, are so many that cannot be left to only functions of other places like courts to deal with, Mr. Speaker. So establishing this tribunal will be able to help farmers where they have got problems with farmers, farmers where they have got problems with millers, millers where they have got problems with millers, Mr. Speaker. Currently, Mr. Speaker, you would know that the issue of disputes is generally being dealt with by Agriculture and Food Authority, Mr. Speaker. But the problem with Agriculture and Food Authority, Mr. Speaker, is that it doesn't have any teeth to bite, Mr. Speaker. But the way this tribunal is structured, Mr. Speaker, it will be able to deal with any overarching issues that might need a tribunal to bite. For instance, Mr. Speaker, the issue of poaching of sugarcane is a major issue, whether you are within the zones that have been prescribed here or without the zones, Mr. Speaker. You'll find that a farmer has entered a contract with one miller, and after entering a contract with one miller, because of pressure of finances, they end up selling their cane to a different miller who they are not within their outgrower schemes, Mr. Speaker. This tribunal will be able to deal with those kind of sugarcane poaching and discipline millers so that millers can be able to develop their own outgrower schemes and make sure that there is sanity for a free market economy in the sugar industry. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, this is a very good bill, and also a very good report that I want to appreciate all the members of that committee that came up with this report, and I hope that we'll fast track the passing of this bill so that the sugarcane farmers in the country can be able to benefit from such a wonderful piece of legislation. Therefore, I support, Mr. Speaker. Thank you so much.
Senator Mungatana.
Mr. Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to really thank you for giving me a chance to also make my comments on this mediated version of the sugar bill. Mr. Speaker, may I congratulate the mediation committee for the wonderful work they have done. Mr. Speaker, this bill has come through both houses. We had our own disagreements, and now we have a version which we can work with. Mr. Speaker, I know that still the Senator of Nairobi has raised another issue there, which was not accommodated in the mediated version. but I still believe that he supported, as I listened, the rest of the clauses that were agreed upon. And maybe, Mr. Speaker, we'll need also to find a way to deal with a situation where some really important issues are left out. But on the whole, Mr. Speaker, I think this is a very good beginning towards implementation of the sugar bill. And we will not debate the sugar bill afresh, but support the recommendations of this report. And Mr. Speaker, one of the most critical, in fact, the only issue I'd like to, because I've debated this bill before, but the one thing that I loved in this mediated version is the committee observation in chapter 3. It said, having considered the clauses of the sugar bill, and they named that sugar bill, the committee observed the sugar catchment areas which cover a number of counties. And they said Central covers these counties, Southern covers these counties, and they go on. Lower Western covers Mumias, Busia, Siaya, and so on. And then they go to coastal area, the sugar catchment coastal area that covers Kwale, Tana River, and Lamu counties, which the committee observed will be used for election of representatives of growers in the Kenya Sugar Board. Because, Mr. Speaker, if this wasn't done, the committee said there is a possibility that counties with many growers may get slots in the board perpetually. So, Mr. Speaker, what was the committee's recommendation? Committee's recommendation was that, having observed the above recommendation, they said that the cabinet secretary should put in place regulations after enactment of the bill, providing that the board positions will be rotational among the different counties in the catchment areas to ensure that each county gets a chance to be represented in the sugar board. Mr. Speaker, what this mediated version is telling the country is that now in the sugar board, there will be opportunity for counties that may not be producing as much, but also produce sugar. Counties like Kwale, Tana River, counties like Lamu, they produce sugar. But, Mr. Speaker, every time the question of sugar is discussed, it's like the coast sugar catchment area is not considered. It's like we are non-existent, and yet we do produce sugar. In fact, Mr. Speaker, in Tana River County in Tana Delta, when they did the first tests, they found that we are able to do 2 crops of sugar in 1 year because of our climatic conditions, which are very good, and the kind of sucrose content that our sugarcane produces is high quality, Mr. Speaker. Our conditions are similar to the ones in Mauritius, and everybody knows that one of the countries that produces extremely good quality sugar is Mauritius. In fact, its economy is dependent on sugar production and clothing and tourism. So, Mr. Speaker, going back to the point, I'm saying that this particular report seems to recognize that the coastal region is also a producer of sugarcane. And in fact, it is deserving of a position on the board, the sugar board, so that the principle of rotation is one that is giving us a voice at the highest level, Mr. Speaker, of sugarcane planning, management of the industry.
Mr. Speaker, this is important because the needs of sugarcane farmers in Kwale, in Tana River, in Lamu, is totally different from the needs of the sugarcane farmers in the other sugarcane catchment areas. And it's important, Mr. Speaker, for our voices to be heard at the highest level. This has not been happening in the past. And I am very happy that this mediated version of the sugar bill is inclusive of this rotational principle. Mr. Speaker, those who may not be familiar with the rotational principle, maybe I need to also give it a bit of background, because in the Pan-African Parliament, Mr. Speaker, we used to have universal suffrage for the election of the Speaker, whom we call Pan-African Parliament President. And we used to have, like, anybody can stand. But what happened, Mr. Speaker? West African countries in this continent of Africa are small states. You find Togo, you find another small state there, you find another, and all these have a seat similar to other states. And the principle of parity, Mr. Speaker, demands that every state has a vote. So what used to happen, Mr. Speaker? They just bunch up together, and small countries by size and also by population, they are able to retain that seat on the western part of the continent of Africa. So what did we do? The African Union intervened and said we must have a rotational principle. And this rotational principle operates like this. We divide the African continent into 5 regions, so that we have the northern region, we have the southern region, the eastern region, the central region, and the western region. So if the leadership has emerged from one area, then you are not eligible to produce a candidate for that position. It has to go to the other area and the other area and the other area until we come back to you. And this, Mr. Speaker, has allowed some sense of fairness. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm so happy to see that this rotational principle is being applied in the sugar board elections, so that there will be a time will come when the sugar catchment area of the coast, meaning Kwale, Tana River, and Lamu, will be producing a person to sit at the highest level of decision-making for the sugar board. And this will affect all the farmers, and this will cause all our voices to be heard at the highest level. So, Mr. Speaker, there are many reasons to support this mediated version of the sugar bill. But for me, Mr. Speaker, I think there is structuring of the management, the allowance of the voice of the people from the coast to be heard at the highest level, the innovation that came into the thinking that will allow other parts of Kenya also to be heard on matters sugar, is a very beautiful reason for me to support this bill. And Mr. Speaker, I urge all other members who are going to speak to this bill to support this bill with all the other clauses. But for me, this was the biggest sell point. So I thank the committee. I thank my colleagues who are part of this committee in this mediation effort. And Mr. Speaker, for me, I support this report. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Beatrice Ogola.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to add my voice to this mediated report. Honorable Speaker, I want to laud one former MP of Ndewa constituency, the late Joshua Orua Ojode, a man who had a vision to think for his community. Honorable Speaker, we are proud of this former and late MP because in Homa Bay County as it is, and then, Honorable Speaker, we had no working industry. The only industry in Homa Bay then was Capital Fish, that was a private company, and it only was concentrated on the fishing sector, Honorable Speaker. So we had an MP who saw it worth that he would initiate work for the establishment of a sugar industry, and that was the birth of what today we call Ndewa Sukari industry in Ndewa sub-county, Honorable Speaker. With this industry, Honorable Speaker, we now had activities, economic activities that our farmers would be engaged in, not limited to our constituency, Honorable Speaker. I happen, Honorable Speaker, to be one of the people that Mheshimiwa Joshua Roa Jode put in place to fight for the establishment of this sugar industry. Amongst them, Honorable Speaker, is the late former chair of the County Council of Southern Nyanza then, called Councillor Jane Were. May her soul rest in peace. Credible councillors then, like the then, after Councillor Jane Were, we had Councillor Dorcas Matunga, who was the chair of the County Council of Homa Bay until devolution came in, Honorable Speaker. We had in the team Councillor John Orata, who is alive today and is a testament of that struggle to initiate the Ndewa Sukari industry. We had other outstanding personalities in Ndewa constituency that were put together by this gallant son of Ndewa, Honorable Joshua Oroa Ojode. It was not easy, Honorable Speaker, because then we had to convince communities who thought that with the coming of Sukari industry, they were going to lose their land. Little did they know that the economy of the region would be jam-started. And so we have farmers who have benefited immensely from the Ndewa Sukari industry. Our farmers are able to pay school fees. Our farmers are able to have money in their pockets. Our farmers have been empowered economically, Honorable Speaker. But with this, all these, Honorable Speaker, there have been setbacks also. And I'm happy, and that is why I want to support what is before us today, Honorable Speaker. I want to support because of a few clauses that have been included by the mediation committee. One of them is clause 29. Honorable Speaker, this is a clause that talks about nomination of universities, that they are able to nominate. Honorable Speaker, we all know that universities have a sole mandate of research. And so, if they are able to nominate some of their own, that will bring in issues that are research related, Honorable Speaker, then, Honorable Speaker, I'm happy with this. One, I would like also the government to also consider increasing funding related to research to our universities. Honorable Speaker, universities are universities because they are centers of knowledge. They are centers of research. So based on the clause 29, Honorable Speaker, I want to support the mediation report. Honorable Speaker, I also want to support the mediation report based on clause 38. That I see, Honorable Speaker, there's the issue of our local roads being addressed by this mediation report. Honorable Speaker, I'm happy that now funds that were going to the Kenya Rural Roads Authority are going to go to the county governments. And of course, Honorable Madam Speaker, I believe that county governments, being governments that are closer to the people, if they have these funds with them, they'll be able to serve our people with the necessary access that is needed. Honorable Speaker, let me come back to my community. Ndewa constituency is a constituency that is majorly having black cotton soil. Honorable Speaker, our roads are pathetic because the trailers and lorries from Ndewa Sukari industry hardly leave our roads in a state in which we can use them well. Honorable Speaker, if you leave the main road that is tarmacked from Rodi Kopany to Sori town, when it rains in Ndewa constituency, Honorable Speaker, you can hardly get any road that we are comfortable with. And yet, there has been money that has been given to the Kenya Rural Roads Authority, and yet we have no roads, access roads in Ndewa constituency. Honorable Speaker, I will be happy if this money will be made use of. Some of the roads that are in pathetic state includes the Ongeng to Kodiera route, a road that mainly serves those sugarcane farmers. The roads are not limited to Ongeng Kodiera Road. We have the Mirogi Opapo Road. We have the Ndewa Pala Road. We have the Ndewa Sidede Road. We have the Miranga Gaena Road. We have the Kowonda Riat Road that mainly takes you to the actual industry, that is the Ndewa Sukari industries. We have the Marindi Konyango Rabul Road. We have the Kalamende Osani Road. Honorable Speaker, I'm just mentioning a few of those roads. But what I'm saying is that my constituency, that is Ndewa, is suffering because of lack of roads that is worsened by the use of the heavy lorries from Sukari industry. So I support this because if the county governments are going to handle these funds for the improvement of the roads, then as a people from my community will be looking up to the upgrading of these roads. I also know, Honorable Speaker, Madam Speaker, that sometimes, having been in the Senate, sometimes counties, the Senate is only so important to the extent at which we fight for funds to go to the counties. But Honorable Speaker, Madam Speaker, I want that these funds should go to the county governments, and in any case, Madam Speaker, the new constitution envisaged a situation where we'd only have 2 levels of government running development funds, the national government and the county government. So, Madam Speaker, if these funds from KERA can be handled by the county governments, then I'm happy that from my sub-county, we will be seeing our roads being done. Honorable Speaker, I also support this mediation report because of clause 59. It is reference to availability. There's going to be inspectors. Honorable Speaker, this will ease some of the problems I've had with Sukari industry. And Honorable Speaker, when I mention Sukari industry every other day, it is not for any malicious reasons, but it is because this industry that is in Ndewa makes the Ndewa people so proud, but we want it to serve the Ndewa people well. In the past, Honorable Speaker, I've mentioned and brought to the floor of this House the various accidents that have been occasioned by the trailers, the sugarcane trailers from Sukari industry. The major deaths have been suffered by the border riders in my constituency and in my county, particularly because there's no regulations that bars the trailers from moving in the night, Honorable Speaker. I remember the last time I brought it here, and CS Murkomen at that time was the CS of Transport, and they promised that this would be addressed because, Honorable Speaker, most of these accidents in Ndewa occur during the night when it is dark. Honorable Speaker, these trailers, when they approach you at darkness, you see the light as if some border is coming. Little do the borders know that that is a whole trailer carrying sugarcane, covering the whole of the road, and thus the many accidents that our boys and our border riders have had, Honorable Speaker. So with the inspectors, Honorable Speaker, we'd be able to engage the sugar industries, and in particular in my case, the Ndewa Sukari industry, into some of the best practices that we'll want them to have. And where, Honorable Speaker, accidents have occurred, which of course we want to be avoided, Honorable Speaker, we would like a situation where the industry would be able to compensate where life and property has been lost that is not warranted. Another aspect of the inspectors that I like, Honorable Speaker, is that the inspectors will be looking at that laws and regulations are adhered to. One of the key regulations that I would like the industry in my sub-county to be keen on is the planning laws, the physical planning laws, that there must be usage for different spaces. Here, Honorable Speaker, I'm talking about the idea of sukari industry and other industries in particular, being very cognizant that there are planning laws in this country. Honorable Speaker, amongst the aspects that I would like the inspectors to be very firm on is the issue of environmental issues surrounding the industry. Coming back to my constituency, Honorable Speaker, I've had issues of environmental nature where waste is thrown by sukari industry that endangers the lives of our people. Honorable Speaker, when I make this example, I'm making an example that is specific, but this example must be spread out to all the sugarcane industry. And I particularly, because of my interest in the sugarcane growing sector, I will be fighting for our people on the environmental issues. I will be fighting for our people on the issues of accidents that are caused by these trailers. Honorable Speaker, the only clause that I'm not comfortable, Honorable Speaker, is this one on clause 59. It talks about the representation of farmers in private companies. And Honorable Speaker, there is a mention, and it is defined as illegal, that farmers should not be represented in the private companies' boards. Honorable Speaker, from my observation and with common knowledge, Honorable Speaker, they are not private citizens in this country. Even the farmers that are served by these industries are not private. And so, with the good practice that we propagate, and in the spirit of good governance, and in the spirit of inclusivity, Honorable Speaker, I would have liked a situation where the farmers have a portion of representation in the private companies' boards. Honorable Speaker, because then they will be talking on behalf of the farmers that are being served by the sugar industries. Otherwise, Honorable Speaker, I want to support this mediated version. And Honorable Speaker, I want to say also that we are looking forward to economic empowerment of our communities. All we want from the sugar industries is that they operate within the laws, within the rules of this country. And Honorable Speaker, all we want is the position of our farmers. Where is the position of our farmers in the sugar industry, in this mediated bill, Honorable Speaker, or in the sugar sector activities? Where is the position of our farmers? Our farmers getting benefit for their sweat. Honorable Speaker, it was very unfortunate. I have a woman farmer from a ward called North Kaboch in Ndewa constituency. This is a lady who had taken her time to get into the farming of sugarcane. But when it came to now harvesting, and with all the investment the lady had put into her farms, when finally her farm was harvested, there was nothing she could show for it. And that brings me to the issue of taxation, Honorable Speaker. Are we encouraging our farmers to sweat, to farm, to take their time, and at the end of it, get nothing for it? We want a situation where the sugar industry is streamlined. And when our farmers get into sugarcane farming, they're able to get something from their sweat, they're able to get returns, they're able to take their children to school, they're able to put food on the table, they are able to have money in their pockets, and they will be able to be an empowered societies. All I call for is that the research department that will be serving this sector should be strengthened, because in other countries, Honorable Speaker, we know that there are species of seeds that grow faster and have major benefits to the farmers. As I support this, I want to encourage Ndewa Sukari industry to keep to the ideals of the late Joshua Roy Jode, to keep to the ideals of the community, of Ndewa community, to keep to the ideals of all we fought for, and let our farmers benefit from their sweat. Honorable Speaker, I support.
Senator Umtata Andrew.
Honorable Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to speak to this very important bill. Because as you know, in the world, we have two types of barons. You have sugar barons and you have drug barons. And both are areas that control a lot of money. The sugar industry has a lot of money, and if well managed and well harnessed, it's an area that will greatly benefit the people of Kenya. So I'm very happy that this bill has come, and I support it. And the very first issue for me is that it's breaking away from AFA. AFA, the agricultural whatever, food, whatever, that put everything under food under one umbrella body, was a bad idea that has seen the damage not just of sugar, but many other crops that had been put under AFA. So, for me, if there's anything, the fact that sugar is going to be a standalone so that its issues can be addressed as standalone issues is, for me, the most important gain we are getting here. Once that division, that separation is done, there's still a lot of work needs to be done on this bill. But that will come at that time. I'm also happy that the bill has moved away from the practice where there was zoning, whereby farmers were sort of harnessed or tied to a miller. And the miller sort of turned the farmers into tenants on their own land. We have gone into catchment areas where several millers are clustered in an area, and so they can compete among themselves, and the farmers can contract with either and can still have their freedom to engage. So I think the development of catchment areas is a development in the right direction, but I'd like us to develop much further and see strong cooperatives emerge in the sugar industry, whereby the farmers can then organize themselves into cooperatives, be able to borrow money directly or to be funded directly, be able to invest in inputs, and then be able to reap the maximum output from their labor. The other thing is maturity of cane. There's need for very, very proper education of our farmers, because some people think that when they wait for 18 months, it's too long, and yet the ideal time for the crop, the kind of crop that is grown in Western, the ideal time for maturity is 20 months.
I've seen studies which show that in the last 4 months, from the 16th month to the 20th month, the crop almost doubles, both in size and in terms of the sucrose content. And therefore, both the miller and the farmer benefit. So there's need to have mechanisms that can enable or cushion the farmer from the pressures of having to harvest their cane early, maybe a reseating system or something like that, whereby the farmer can then deal with the immediate cash issues as the crop matures, and then it is harvested at an opportune time. There's also the issue of the contracts that millers sometimes enter with farmers. And these contracts have resulted in sometimes the farmer incurring a lot of losses. The contract seems to develop to protect the miller more than it does the farmer, so that when the cane is damaged in any way, the miller seems to walk away free. For example, there are some contracts that say when the cane is planted and it is standing on the land, the cane belongs to the factory. When the cane is cut, it reverts to the farmer, and between the time when it is cut to the time when it's delivered in the factory, it belongs to the farmer. So any losses suffered there around are borne by the farmer, and that to me is not acceptable. And when the cane enters the factory, it reverts to the factory. There's need to look at those kind of contracts that seem to disadvantage the farmer, so that there can be proper gain on the part of the farmer, and as well as the miller benefits. I've also looked at the establishment of the Sugar Tribunal. That's a very, very good development. Unfortunately, it's established as a part-time tribunal. I don't not informed that, because what I know, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that there are a lot of issues in the sugar industry that you would require a full-time tribunal, not a standalone. There's also this issue, and I look at it, that the tribunal will be, the chairman will be appointed by the Chief Justice. They don't qualify whether it will be competitive or not, but the members will be competitively recruited. I hope that in the regulations, which the minister is, together with the Council of Governors, are empowered to make at Section 60, will be utilized to seal those loopholes so that the recruitment is competitive. But I'm very happy, as somebody who has been litigating the question of these tribunals, which are subordinate courts. There has been a habit of having them under the executive, so that the president could appoint the chairman, and then the minister appoints the members, and then you find you go before this tribunal and it's appointed by the executive, and you just end up fighting the executive in its own court. So I've been litigating, and I'm very happy to see that the orders I got in the court saying that the tribunals must be under the judiciary, under the Judicial Service Commission, under the Chief Justice, is being implemented in this act, whereby now the Sugar Tribunal is an independent tribunal, independent of the executive, appointed by the judiciary. And so when the parties go there, be it the executive or the private members of the public, they will appear before an independent tribunal which can dispense justice. I've also noticed that the tribunal will be funded from the judiciary fund. And as you and me know, Mr. Speaker, the judiciary fund has not been activated. And maybe this is a wake-up call to the Parliament, especially the National Assembly, to implement the judiciary fund, which is in the Constitution, so that this tribunal can be funded. Otherwise, we might run into headwinds whereby this tribunal does not get funding. My sister, Senator Ogola, raised the issue of taxes. There are too many taxes on the sugar crop. We pray that the same be reduced and sugar crop be considered a food crop. Why it is classified just like some cash crop with no food value is what I don't understand. And yet most of the sugar ends up on our tables. There are matters of environmental issues have not been addressed in this bill. One of the biggest problems of sugar farming has been the destruction of water catchment areas. Where I come from, Mr. Speaker, sir, massive swamps that used to hold water and absorb the rainfall and keep water available to the people throughout the year have been drained. And dried out so that people can grow sugarcane. Those environmental issues will need to be looked into after we have passed this bill, so that the farming of sugar is not destructive to the environment. And there should be restrictions of where you can farm sugarcane and where you cannot farm sugarcane. Because if we destroy our water catchment areas, we are simply stoking disaster. And if you realize water catchment areas in the Constitution and Article 62 are defined as public land that belongs to the national government. I think 62G. So 62G defines water catchment areas, and water catchment areas include wetlands. And sugarcane has been very, very destructive to wetlands in the manner it has been farmed. If we must grow sugarcane, maybe there will be need for research so that we can have cane which can grow in these wetlands without having to drain the wetlands dry so that the cane can grow. So, Mr. Speaker, there has been the issue of transport, whereby it is true very many accidents occur because if you are familiar with the tractors usually have very narrow heads. So the headlamps are almost next to each other. And at night, it looks like it's one headlamp, which is basically associated with motorcycles. And that has resulted in many accidents whereby all of a sudden you realize there's a huge trailer behind the tractor which is coming. So I would be praying that in the regulations, when the minister and the governors make the regulations, we should get a way of insisting that these tractors that transport cane are fitted with strobe lights. A strobe light is like the kind of thing you see on the police vehicle, which flashes when the light rotates. So if strobe lights can be a requirement for the tractors, I think that will help avert the many accidents that occur, because people assume they are going to meet a two-wheeler, but they end up meeting a huge truck. Mr. Speaker, sir, sugarcane has a major problem in this country, the dumping of sugar in this country. The dumping of sugar in this country, I don't see any serious sanctions against the dumping of cheap sugar that has destroyed the country. And maybe as we go forward, this will be among the issues that have to be addressed so that whoever dumps sugar in this country will face their consequences. Also, we will know that some sugar factories are simply created for the purpose of packaging dumped sugar. You find they hardly have an acre of own cane. They don't have how to grow farmers, but their sugar is all over on the shelves. This kind of factories, Mr. Speaker, sir, need to be looked into, and they need to be addressed so that they do not become conduits of simply dumping sugar on the population. And Mr. Speaker, you have the question of products that come out of cane. Our sugar industry has been held back due to the fact that basically the only product we go for is sugar and ethanol, and we dump everything else. So the raw materials that are possible to be extracted from the sugar cane are hardly extracted fully. And the farmer needs to benefit from all those byproducts that can be made. So we need to look at new technologies and encourage new technologies to come up so that this can happen. There was the issue of our current factories, which run mainly obsolete. They run mainly obsolete machinery. Mr. Speaker, sir, there might be a need to create a window of opportunity which can allow our sugar factories to modernize, and maybe then create a mechanism through the regulations of enforcing those kind of requirements so that efficiencies are realized. We don't run basically elaborated sugar jaggeries and call them sugar factories, which basically waste a lot of most of the crop. Mr. Speaker, I also want to contribute to the question of taxation in the sugar industry. I want to repeat that. I want to repeat that and reiterate that if we don't take seriously the question of how much taxes are imposed within the industry, we are going to kill this industry by the name of taxing them. There are very, very many taxes that are imposed on the sugar crop, on the inputs, on the outputs, and all these things go up to frustrate both the miller and the farmer. Mr. Speaker, sir, we have had, before this bill came up, we have had the issue of outgrower companies. There's need to relook at these outgrower companies to find out whether they are viable vehicles or not, and if they are viable, how they should be handled. There's need to look at the assets that these outgrower companies had. For example, when you go to my county in Busia, we have the Busia Outgrowers Company, which had assets, and when Mumias folded, because they were basically tied by the umbilical cord to Mumias Sugar Company, when Mumias Sugar Company went under, Busia Outgrower Company, or called Boko, also went under. Of late, I've seen that the new Mumias has been releasing assets of Boko to an unknown entity. Some tractors have been released. If you go to Busiana, you'll find some tractors which are ferrying cane with the insignia of Boko on the trailers and Boko on the tractor. But we don't know what kind of arrangement there is. So with this sugar board coming in, it will be very easy to be able to follow up the issues of issues similar to those ones, to ensure that the bona fides of the people who are put in charge of these public assets are not in doubt. Also that the assets of these private bodies are not lost. There is a question of the levies that come in the sugar, that come through the sugar taxes or the sugar levy. These are ring-fenced, and some of them go into development of roads and stuff like that. There's need to ring-fence them and ensure that these things are kept away from organizations that do not have really a good track record of building roads like KERA, and maybe mechanisms that are properly articulated in the regulations are utilized to make sure that the funds get to the farmer. If it's for roads, they go to and they build the roads. The question of cess, collections from cess, need to be stressed and made clear. And so the real work in this sugar bill, Mr. Speaker, sir, lies in the regulations. And I will be urging the governors who come from the sugar belt and the other areas that are going to be affected by this act to begin burning the midnight oil to make sure that the regulations that are made under Section 60 really breathe life to this act and seal all the loopholes that are still standing, to ensure that the intention of Parliament when enacting this act, that the sugarcane growers may thrive in the Republic of Kenya, are realized. Otherwise, we are not going to get very far. So I support this bill, and I implore on my brothers and sisters in this August House to also put their weight behind this bill. If there's anything you are uncomfortable with in this bill, please let us hold our fire. At least we detach the sugar industry from AFA. If we achieve that, we can always come back with amendment bills to fix whatever we are not comfortable with. But we don't throw the baby away with the bathwater. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, sir, I support the bill, and thank you very much for the opportunity to contribute.
Thank you, Senator Olekina.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me begin by saying that I support the mediated version of the sugar bill. Mr. Speaker, this is a country that depends entirely on agriculture. And Senator Mungatana was right to say that in countries where people care about any industry, they invest heavily and they lead. And I'm glad that he mentioned Mauritius. In Narok County, Mr. Speaker, Narok County has been zoned, or rather it has been termed as the southern catchment area, together with Migori, Homa Bay, Kisii. And one of the things that I support this mediated version of the bill is that this area is now going to be referred to as a catchment area. It is imperative that we demystify this bill so that farmers out there can be able to understand what it is that we are talking about. There have been a lot of competition in terms of the industry players, the milling companies. When they come in, they invest a lot of resources, they fund the farmers, the outgrowers, and immediately the outgrowers, the crop has already grown, someone comes and poaches that cane, and take it into another region. I'm glad that that issue of poaching of cane, or rather the corruption that existed in the industry, both between the farmers and the millers, has now been dealt with accordingly. It is important for the farmers out there to note that the mediated version of this bill now makes it illegal for you to sell your cane to another area when you have a contract with a milling plant. And I want to go as basic as possible. And I'll use examples of milling plants that exist in my county of Narok. If you have a contract with Transmara Sugar Company, and the Transmara Sugar Company has given you money to buy the seeds, the seedlings. They have given you money to buy the fertilizer. They have given you money to pay for the workers, the labor. They expect to be able to get a good crop so that they can be able to take out their expenses when they're buying that cane from you. Then you share the profit. You take the profit and they get their expenses out, and as well as getting the product. It is important for you to know that you cannot sell that sugar cane or that cane to any other catchment area or even anybody else from another area if you have that contract. That is very, very important. Mr. Speaker, it is also important for us to demystify what we've actually done with this mediated version of the bill. It now means that if you're a sugar grower in Narok, Kisii, Homa Bay, and Migori, you belong to one region. The term zoning was complicated. People did not like to deal with the term zoning. Now you are one catchment area. It is imperative that you are represented in the board. Mr. Speaker, my colleague, Senator Omtata, was talking about AFA and saying that if we can pull out the sugar industry from AFA, it will be able to bring sanity. I beg to differ. I think for us as a country, it is about time that we stop all these nonsensical authorities. Today, Mr. Speaker, a practical example is that the cereal millers are complaining. They are crying. Because when you go now to the National Biosafety Authority, which should actually essentially be under AFA, the National Biosafety Authority, Mr. Speaker, are now introducing a fee, which is very expensive and very punitive, Mr. Speaker. This fee was actually gazetted recently, that now for an importer, and remember, Mr. Speaker, we are talking about food security in this country. We are talking about the cost of living
being very expensive in this country, trying to reduce the cost of living. But because of the actions of this independent authority, you've got KEFIS, you've got this one called, the one I just mentioned, the National Biosafety Authority. You've got others as well, and I think, let me just read them all. All these, you've got AFA. So you've got AFA, you've got now the Sugar Board, you've got KEFIS, you've got the National Biosafety Authority. Each one of them have now turned into competing to see which one will punish farmers the most, which one will make it expensive for produce which are being consumed in this country, and also those ones which are exported out. So when the National Biosafety Authority, without consulting the millers and also the farmers and the consumers, decide that now, when you are importing wheat, the time when you are paying your IDF, their import declaration fee, you also have to pay a certain amount of money to be able to test whether that wheat has got GMO. Forgetting the debate on GMO in this country. Of course, I don't support GMO at all. But we do not import wheat from countries. There are already measures that have been put in place whereby the countries that are selling wheat to this country, Ukraine, Russia, they know very well that they cannot export wheat to Kenya that has got GMO. But now, this National Biosafety Authority decide, no, we are going to gazette another figure where you have to pay together with the IDF. Why are we making it so expensive? Why are we making it so complicated? My colleagues are saying that the details will be on the regulations. Can we just fold all these agencies and put them all under AFA, the Agricultural Food Authority, and then create departments or departments among it? But now the moment you have biosafety, you have any other one, they will just continue competing with each other on which one will be able to punish farmers. It is now very expensive to export anything from Kenya, Mr. Speaker. Very expensive. It is very expensive to import anything into this country when it comes to the issue of agriculture. So I think this Senate and the Committee on Agriculture must take its time. Mr. Speaker, I'll be bringing a statement tomorrow to be able to understand all these levies. I hope that when we come down to the regulation on this sugar board, those levies will either be done away completely with, give it a moratorium of about 5 years to allow people to be able to develop the cane industry, and then we can now revisit after that. I really have a big problem, Mr. Speaker, of creating all these authorities. We're creating jobs for a few individuals. Those individuals, instead of them going out there and really helping the industry, they are going there to penalize these farmers. Mr. Speaker, I've looked at these amendments that have been proposed, or rather that have been agreed upon. I like the fact that now, for once, we will have a representative appointed by the Cabinet Secretary from the universities. And I'm glad that is going to coming from the universities that have done research or that are doing research on sugar. We don't want someone just being appointed to go there and sit in this board just because you know so and so. Mr. Speaker, I'm pushing this country towards adopting meritocracy. Put someone there because they know what they're talking about. They know value addition when it comes to sugar. I wish that we can become like Mauritius, Mr. Speaker. When you go to Mauritius, today you can buy a lot of different candies. You can buy a lot of different sugar types. Even for those who indulge themselves in alcohol, you can get rum out of it. You can also, for others who construct houses, low-cost housing, you can use some of the sugar things to be able to construct houses. So there's a lot of value addition. So those are the things that we need, and we need people from universities that have got the qualification, people who are constantly developing research to be able to support the industry. It is also important, Mr. Speaker, and I like the fact that the representation in the board will be rotational. Let us rotate. I'd like to see someone from Narok County sitting on the board. I'd wish that the term limit in the board would have just been made for 1 year. Because you see, we subscribe to the Mwongozo, principle when it comes to board formation. Just have 9 people. Don't have a huge board. So, because we have these 4 areas, actually 5. The coastal, southern, lower western, upper western, central. When we set up that board, we make sure that there's a person representing at least from each of the catchment areas. And then next time it rotates again, you have someone else if you have someone from Kisii this time around, next time you have someone from Migori. Next time you have somebody from Narok. That way, all our interests will be taken into consideration. I want to reiterate on this issue of taxation. It is an inopportune time to introduce anything to do with taxation. It is not appropriate. It is very expensive to make ends meet. And I do hope, Mr. Speaker, that if we get it right this time around with the sugar industry, we can now go back and narrow on these authorities. I'm particularly interested in this biosafety authority. I want us to discuss and agree on which way are we going as a country when it comes to the issue of GMO. That debate was so live at some point, and everybody thought GMO was going to be accepted into the country and all that stuff. Of course, some of us don't believe in it, and we do not want that. But to come in and penalize importers, it is making it very expensive for us to be able to enjoy chapati. I was seeing a small tourist who came into this country, and he had $1. And he said with $1, he can be able to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner and be left with some little pocket change to be able to enjoy a snack later. And some of the food that he was listing down is tea, chapati. I believe now with this new introduction of a fee to check whether the food has got any GMO component in it, it is now going to be more expensive to even afford that chapati. I want to end by stating the following, Mr. Speaker. Let me just look at my notes before I forget them. I'm happy that persons with disability and also the youth will now be given an opportunity to serve in that board. They will be given an opportunity for them to be able to express their views, for them to be represented. And this is important, Mr. Speaker, because when you tag along with people with disability and also tag along with the youth, you're thinking about the future. There will always be institutional memory. This business of just bringing old, dilapidated folks to sit in the board as if they're the only ones who have got the monopoly of all the wisdom and knowledge of the sugar industry must now come to an end. The youth who are in the university are taking advantage of the technology advancement, and they are looking at ways that each area can be able to realign their own existing resources and push the industry ahead. I want to end by reminding these authorities that we will not allow you to make it difficult for Kenyans to afford basic commodities, basic foods, agriculture being devolved. Mr. Speaker, I want this Senate to be in the front line. When I bring my statement on these levies which are being introduced, which are killing businesses, I hope that the Cabinet Secretary of Agriculture will be called here to come into this Senate. The directors of KEFIS, the directors, or even KEBS. You know, there are things, Mr. Speaker, that just shocks me. You've got KEBS, which we should actually be supporting KEBS completely because of the expertise that they have. But no, even when it comes to the issue of seeds, this is really shocking, Mr. Speaker, if you listen to this. Today, for you to be able to have a type of seed, like let's say bean, you will need certification. You'll also need authority from KEFIS. It will take you probably a whole year or 2 or 3 years to get permission from KEFIS. You will need that seed to be certified. And then there's KEBS also out there that has got to approve. Why not move everything to KEBS and empower KEBS and build this AFA to be able to take care of everything agriculture? And since agriculture is devolved, encourage county governments to invest heavily in research. We cannot all be depending on this central government structure for all the policies. And then also in terms of implementation, we are now also going there, and yet agriculture is devolved. We need to be clear on how we are going to deal with this issue of food security. Mr. Speaker, you'll allow me to check on my notes. I have one more point that I'm forgetting, which I think it is very, very important. That it is important, let me just remember this. This is the beauty of technology, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there's one more levy which is very, very important. I know my time is up. But there is an increase in the phytosanitary fees, which has moved, listen to this, from 15% to 337%. You know, what logic are these people using to be able to increase all these fees? So this is concerning, and everybody out there should be concerned. As we sit here as senators, we must be cognizant of what is happening out there. Food is becoming expensive because the government is making it expensive. Because these authorities are increasing. KEFIS is increasing fees. We know we want safety. We want biosafety. But honestly, can we not work together as AFA, now that we introduce AFA, to be able to make it easy? Can we not promote KEBS so that it is easy to do business? Produce in Kenya, Mr. Speaker, and I'll end by saying this. If you look at the tonnage of wheat or of beans grown in Tanzania, 10 years ago, it was the same level as Kenya. We're producing about 600 or 700,000 tons of beans. But because of the rigid certification process in this country, led by KEFIS, today, Tanzania is producing over 1 million tons of beans. Yet, we are still stagnating at the same level of 500, 600, 700. We'll never grow. And on top of that, our produce are more expensive than our neighboring countries. So we need to think of the consequences and the unintended consequences of introducing these levies. If we introduce these levies, we should ask ourselves what will happen in our neighboring countries. People will now stop importing anything into this country. They'll be exporting everything to Tanzania and Uganda, because it is cheaper to do business there than to do business in this country. A lot of farmers are leaving. Yesterday I had some guests from the British High Commission visiting me, and they said that all businesses who have invested in this country from Britain have now left because of the fact that we do not have a stable taxation system. You know, it is not predictable. Today, an agency raises up and decides, hey, we are not collecting more money. We need to collect more money. And you don't even see what they are doing to help the farmers. It's just a few individuals who end up creating a cartel, you know, to sort of like make it better for them. You know, one that I do not support, and I'm happy that my colleague, Senator Sifuna agreed to it, is whereby you exempt the importers of sugar from paying a certain levy. It is important for us to balance everything. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Mofire.
Very much, Honorable Speaker. I want to start by saying that this bill is long overdue, and I want to support the mandated version of the entire bill. Honorable Speaker, when we were growing up, we used to hear of very vibrant sugar companies, the Mumias, the Zoia, the Chiviril. These companies are no longer vibrant as they used to be. And this one will be purely be explained by the level of mismanagement, the level of corruption, the level of embezzling, the level of so many inefficiencies related to management of the sugar industries, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I've been able to go through this bill, which is very broad. It has captured a lot of issues. And I want to agree with the team, Honorable Speaker, that if this bill finds its way into the market, it is going to solve quite a number of issues bedeviling this sugar industry, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I want to be very specific on a number of issues that I've just noticed that are very impressive, that are going to make sure that sugar industry is no longer going to be a cash cow for individuals, cash cow for quite a number of mismanagement around the country. If you look at the establishment of powers and functions of the Kenya Sugar Board, Honorable Speaker, the bill has established a very vibrant, very strong sugar board, which is entrusted with quite a number of responsibilities, Honorable Speaker. Because if you look at Article, this is Article A on the functions and the way this board is supposed to operate. It says that the board is going to participate in the formulation and implementation of overall policies, plans, and programs of work for the development of industry. And this is very critical, Honorable Speaker, because without policies, without overall policies and plans, we may not be able to see any meaning in the whole sugar industry, Honorable Speaker. The board, at the same time, is going to monitor and regulate the domestic market with a view to identify any distortion in the sugar market and advise the government and interested parties or any other corrective measures to be taken. So, Honorable Speaker, this is quite important, especially in the market industry, because once the board is going to monitor and regulate the domestic market with a view to identify any distortion, it's a clear indication, Honorable Speaker, that the sugar industry is not going to be the same again. On the same breath, Honorable Speaker, I've also been able to look at the establishment of Kenya Research Institute, the Sugar Research Institute, Honorable Speaker. This is a way of saying that we now have an institute which is supposed to research on sugar industry, which is supposed to promote, coordinate, and regulate research in sugar crop, and byproducts, also technologies and management practices, Honorable Speaker. Once we establish a research institute, Honorable Speaker, this is where we are going to safeguard ourselves against even pests and to make sure that we know the kind of diseases that will be developing this institute, Honorable Speaker. The same institute, Honorable Speaker, is going also to determine and advise the board on the research requirements for sugar research in Kenya, both at the national and the county level. Considering that, Honorable Speaker, agriculture is it's a devolved unit. I think this is very important because there's going to be a very, very, very serious and elaborate coordination between the national government and county government. And under this arrangement, Honorable Speaker, the sugar industry is going to be as vibrant as it used to be. This recharge, Honorable Speaker, as well, is going to breed and promote sugarcane varieties suited for various ecological areas of Kenya. You know, Honorable Speaker, the kind of variety, the kind of sugar variety that is approved to be found in Tana River, where my brother, Senior Counsel Mongatana comes, might not be the same variety that is likely to find its way in Narok or Mumias for that matter. So I think with this kind of research, we are sure that we are getting the best breed in those specific areas, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I have also noticed that in the bill, we also have established appointment of sugar industry inspectors for that matter. This is the way this bill is very serious. The board shall appoint qualified sugar industry inspectors for purposes of undertaking its functions under this act or any other written law. Honorable Speaker, under this arrangement, a person shall not be appointed as a sugar industry inspector unless such person owns an academic or a professional qualification prescribed by the board. So this one, Honorable Speaker, is going to keep away quacks and the political fraudsters who are again to find their way in this industry, which is very important. And under this arrangement, Honorable Speaker, the sugar industry is going to regain its glory. So, Honorable Speaker, thank you very much. I want to support this bill, and I hope we are going to develop so many other bills that are likely to safeguard the interests of the Kenyan farmer. I support Honorable Speaker.
Senator Paul Thangwa.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to also contribute on this report and motion on the Mediation Committee on the Sugar Bill. Mr. Speaker, we as a Senate came up with this bill. And then after the Senate passed this bill, it was, of course, given to the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker. But I want to give a chronology of events. This bill was passed here at the Senate on the 25th April 2024. And then on the 13th May 2024, the National Assembly was informed. That was 18 days after we passed it here, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, after 13th May of 2024, the National Assembly passed this bill with amendments on the 1st August 2024. That is 77 days after it was notified by the Senate. Mr. Speaker, if you add those days, 18 plus 77, that is 95 days. Maybe you're wondering why I'm doing the math, Mr. Speaker. It took 95 days, that is 3 months, for both houses to debate and to come up with a proposal that requires mediation. And it is a bill that affects the farmers directly. And this is a sugar bill. The farmers who grow sugar or sugarcane, Mr. Speaker. 95 days, both the houses. The reason I'm saying that, Mr. Speaker, I wish we can borrow this from how we expedited the removal of the Deputy President. We took a few days, Parliament took a few days, we took a few days, and Mr. Speaker, what I would want to say,
Senator
Mr.
Mugatana, what is your point
protect me, Mr. Speaker.
One moment, Paul, there's a Senator Paul, there's a
Unified House, Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Senator from Kiambu. Is he in order to try and create a parallel between a proper mediation process, a bill that originates from the National Assembly, comes to the Senate Senate raises issue, and those issues are mediated, and the bill goes back for mediation process. Is it in order to bring a parallel between that and an impeachment process that is timed, that is constitutional? And Mr. Speaker, is it in order to start being irrelevant to the debate? Mr. Speaker, please dignify this House, bring the senator to order.
Senator Paul.
Mr. Speaker, I didn't know that Senator Mungatana holds the SI unit of relevance. Mr. Speaker, I'm bringing a comparison of how the two houses executed an issue that was supposed to take more days, but they reduced the days to a minimum, Mr. Speaker. Even the days of nominating and approving Deputy President's designate that has given 74 days, it was done in 3 hours, Mr. Speaker. I'm saying, can we borrow from that expediency, that efficiency, when it comes to passing some bills that help our farmers, like the sugar bill? Mr. Speaker, as I stand here, the coffee bill that we passed over 6 months ago has not seen the light of the day in the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker. So it is wrong for the Senator Mungatana, to tell me that I'm bringing comparison. All I'm saying, let's borrow a leaf from what happened when we were trying to impeach the Deputy President and when we tried to approve the Deputy President designate. If we did that, our farmers will praise us, Mr. Speaker. Because if we shorten the period, our farmers will stop suffering, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, protect me. I cannot be debating with the Senator Mungatana. I'm here, Mr. Speaker, to debate on the issue of the sugar bill. Unless he has a problem with me, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Thangwa, there's a point of order, and you do understand.
But why is he raising point of order all the time, Mr. Speaker? He was quiet when others were speaking, Mr. Speaker.
It's as per the standing orders. He has every right to.
I respect you, Mr. Speaker.
What is your point of order, Senator Mungatana?
Mr. Speaker, let's be dignified in this House, and let's be honest to ourselves, irrespective of where we are standing in this matter of impeachment. We know, and Honorable, and I have a lot of respect, he's our chairman in one of these committees, infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, why bring similarity between those processes? This one is timed for a short period of time. This one has a longer period of time. Why can't he go to the issues? Mr. Speaker, this House, when we are debating these kind of matters, like the sugar bill, which I have just debated, it's a very serious matter. I mean, for once, let's put down politics, trying to score points and hit the points. If you don't have points, also sit down. Mr. Speaker, please, I beg you, Mr. Speaker, to bring the House to order. That's all I'm asking.
Senator Mungatana, I will have to overrule your point of order on this very fact that the only comparison the senator made, the senator for Kiambu, was the comparison in terms of expediency. So he could have taken any other case and used it as an example, but he has the right to choose. I'm assuming he chose that one because it's the most recent case which has been taken place in this House. So for him to compare in terms of expediency, and to say that we should borrow a leaf in terms of moving bills as fast as we move other businesses in this House or both houses, because I'm also assuming that the impeachment case was handled by both houses. As far as this bill also, it's being handled by both houses. And he's just making a comparison in terms of expediency. I don't see anything wrong with that, Senator Mungatana, and let's allow him to conclude his motion. Senator Paul.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for protecting me. I think now I'll be very happy when I walk the streets of Nairobi and people say that we look alike. At least now I'll be smiling because you're protecting me. Mr. Speaker, I'm here to say that I support this report. And as I support this report, I support it for only 2 reasons. Reason number 1, it is the reintroduction of Kenya Sugar Board, Mr. Speaker. The Kenya Sugar Board was disbanded years ago. And this is the board that the farmers themselves are able to articulate their issues, are able to manage the sugarcane production, Mr. Speaker. So I can say this is the only reason. But then I was asking myself, as a country, are we over-legislating, Mr. Speaker? Are we prescribing the law too much to the person that they are unable to perform, Mr. Speaker? Because when you say that the farmers must have a cooperative, the farmers must take to a certain miller, what happened with the free market, Mr. Speaker? But then I saw the National Assembly brought a new clause, which I'm going to read here, Mr. Speaker, which made me a little bit happy. The bill be amended by inserting the following new clause immediately after clause 19. A grower may deliver cane outside a sugar cane zone, provided that the grower has a pre-existing agreement with a miller outside the sugar cane. Mr. Speaker, that tells you that the sugarcane grower can take the sugarcane to wherever they want, Mr. Speaker. But the issue of contract is also a problem, Mr. Speaker, because we tell our farmers to take sugar, their produce, to a certain factory, and that factory is collapsing, and this person cannot sell their produce, the hard-earned produce, the one they have really put a lot of input. And then we make sure that, or we compel them to sell to a certain factory that is actually collapsing. That's why our farmers are not really being productive, Mr. Speaker. But then I continued reading, Mr. Speaker, and I found out the National Assembly also brought a new amendment, a new clause that says that the bill be amended by inserting the following new clauses immediately after clause 19. A grower may deliver cane outside a sugarcane catchment area, provided that the grower has no supply agreement with the miller within the sugarcane catchment area than that they are situated in. It is not indebted to a miller or an outgrower institution within the sugarcane catchment area, Mr. Speaker. We are trying to make the market or growing of sugar a little bit of free market, but still, we are somehow, Mr. Speaker, telling the farmer, you cannot do this, you can only do that, Mr. Speaker. Sometimes I look at it and ask myself, if I have a shirt that I want to sell, Mr. Speaker, do I need the government to tell me where to sell it and who to sell it to? Do I need the government to tell me, now you have worn that yellow t-shirt for a long time, now sell it to this other factory or to this other person who would want to wear that shirt, Mr. Speaker? So sometimes, and I think as a Senate, we need to rethink, because we're becoming over-prescriptious, if there's a word like that, Mr. Speaker. Subscribing, telling people what they should do morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, instead of trying to help the people, because we have devolution, for them to manage their own affairs at the county level, Mr. Speaker. And I heard it here. Somebody is even telling us that we should prescribe that the sugarcane tractor should not travel at night, Mr. Speaker. Instead of having civic education to train the drivers, nobody has called for the prescription of the Mirage drivers. They drive carelessly on our roads, Mr. Speaker, causing accidents right, left, and center. But somebody is saying, let's tell the sugarcane drivers to drive during the day, Mr. Speaker. Instead of saying, okay, if you're driving at night, you're supposed to have good lights, you're supposed to have siren if you have to, Mr. Speaker, but not putting it within the law. Because if we put it within the law, we are giving the law enforcers some moments of getting bribes, and corruption will be enhanced by this, Mr. Speaker. So sometimes we need now to think, because we realize, and I'm saying this, Mr. Speaker, it is an eye-opener. What happened on this floor of this House a few days, it's an eye-opener. Because I had a lot of faith with the Senate, Mr. Speaker. I had a lot of faith, Mr. Speaker. But what happened a few days, I realized we are on our own. Mr. Speaker. We are on our own. That nobody is following the law, Mr. Speaker. So what we need to do, instead of reintroducing the law to our people, tell our people you are free, but make sure, Mr. Speaker, you look at the people next to you, look at the safety. We give people civic education, but not the law, Mr. Speaker. I want to give you an example, Mr. Speaker. During the Moi era, it was against the unwritten law. I don't know whether it was written, but it was against the unwritten law for you to open your shop when Moi was in your area, Mr. Speaker. The shopping centers were closed when Moi came to your area. And if you had not closed your shop, the chiefs and their police, the APs, could arrest you because of doing that, Mr. Speaker. That at that particular time, people thought was the law, and they complied until people became civilized and they understood it's their right for them to open shop, sell what they sell. So even on this issue of sugarcane, the issue of coffee, the issue of tea, probably we are doing injustice to our people when we over-prescribe, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let's give the power to the Kenya Sugar Board that they can sit down and decide whatever they want to do, Mr. Speaker. Because, Mr. Speaker, when I look at the bill, 19B, in their new clause, they're saying a miller may enter into a contract of cane supply with another miller. And then we tell them the factory of the miller is temporarily broken. So meaning a miller is given a leeway to subcontract another miller if probably their factory is broken down, Mr. Speaker. It sounds easy, it sounds okay, it sounds fine. But where does the farmer come in this instance, Mr. Speaker? Where does the farmer comes in when it comes to there is an oversupply of cane in the miller? So if you cannot handle supply, why do we give you an opportunity to subcontract rather than giving the farmer to look at where the price is good and take your goods there, Mr. Speaker? And I'm saying this, Mr. Speaker, with a lot of faith and a lot of hope with the legislature. But I'm telling you, it's an eye-opener. What happened the other day, Mr. Speaker? We might be pretending to be doing good, yet we are trying to affirm some organization like Agriculture and Food Authority, which is a failure in this country, the AFA. That's why the sugar cane has collapsed. That's why the coffee has collapsed. That's why tea has collapsed, Mr. Speaker. And by coming up with this law, we are giving channels of corruptions to some agencies that, Mr. Speaker, instead of helping our farmers, we help these agencies, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I would want to commend both houses where we are at this particular time, because we have looked at the bill and, of course, come up with different amendments. And one of them is farmer protection. That is to regulate sugar imports, Mr. Speaker. Because sugar importation is one of the things that has crippled the production of sugar. Because there are people who are given that work, they overload or they oversupply sugar. And that's why farmers are not benefiting, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the sugar factories, there is none in Kiambu, but I have learned they pay in losses, Mr. Speaker. Because if you charge less, if you pay less, the farmers will not supply. So you tell them you're going to pay them more, and by that, Mr. Speaker, they bring the sugarcane, and then you are not able to pay. That's why the government is offsetting billions of loans. And these loans have been taken to pay the farmer. So if the sugarcane miller is not assisting any farmer, Mr. Speaker, why do we need it? We should make this market liberal. A farmer can take the sugarcane everywhere. Just like the way we are in Safaricom, all of us. Nobody came up with a law and told us, let's go to Safaricom. It's because the services were better there. And that's why people went there. If the sugarcane miller is a good sugarcane miller, people will go there. They don't need the law. They only need they only need money. They only need to be paid for their produce, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this law is bringing about transparency and accountability. And one thing that I support about the levy is the research. Because, Mr. Speaker, we need to do research. Do we only rely on sugarcane, the traditional way of making sugar? We have other produce or other crops that we call sugar beets, Mr. Speaker. Do we tell our farmers, maybe sugar beets, they're easy to grow, but they are bringing the same equal kind of product, that is sugar, Mr. Speaker. So we need to fund research, and this bill is bringing about research, Mr. Speaker. And as I conclude, Mr. Speaker, I've looked at the Kenya Sugar Board membership, and it is recommending a 3-year term. Mr. Speaker, you know where we are right now. The country is in pain, and the country is protesting because somebody somewhere has proposed a 7-year term for the president, for the member of parliament, for the senator, Mr. Speaker. But for us, every law that we make a 3-year term for the members of the board, the Kenya Sugar Board, the Kenya Coffee Board, the Kenya Film, I don't know what, the CAK, every government parastatal, we give them 3 years. But we give ourselves 7 years. Mr. Speaker, I think this is a conversation that this country needs to take. A conversation of that we do not just do what benefits us as the legislators. We should do what benefits the people of Kenya. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Mungatana could not stand it when I compare the expediency of how he voted to kick out somebody and how he's voting to have the people of his county to have a sugar mill, Mr. Speaker. And I'm done.
What is your point of order, Senator Mungatana?
Mr. Speaker, I was rising to request the honorable member to observe that the person I voted against was breaking the Constitution by discriminating against the people of Tana River, championing for interests from his own region against the specific Article 10, provisions of Article 10, Mr. Speaker. And I have every right to do so. I will do so today. I will do so tomorrow. And Mr. Speaker, he also has a right to vote the other way, the senator for Kiambu. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Senator Julius Murgo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to also add my voice to those of my colleagues. First of all, I support the bill because the sugar industry, when it first started in areas that have the industries and have the crop planted, that is Western Nyanza and many other parts in the country, it was a very blooming farming business that people managed their lives well because of this crop. And people managed to pay school fees for their children, going to schools. University students went to school without difficulty. High school students went to schools without difficulty because their parents found a new crop, a new cash crop that made them manage life. And soon it became even a challenge to have maize plantations in those areas because sugarcane took over every piece of land that was available for cultivation. And life went on very well in these areas. But as soon as there was introduction of free market, it became a plague, and it became a beginning of the end of the industry, or it introduced many problems. Farmers were not able to manage their lives. Their children were not able to go to schools because there was no fees for the farmers to be able to pay their fees, and many things about life became very difficult. And then cartels came in that took advantage of the farmers. And then very soon, farmers, some of them were not even able to remove or cut the cane from the lands because they could not afford. And so every situation took advantage of sugar farmers. Talk of even those that ran these industries subjected the farmers to vulnerability that they could not be able to take their crop to the industry, and some of them even abandoned the cane on the gates of some of these factories because they had nothing to return it home for. And so it became a crop that was really just left in the hands of the farmers without a way forward that would bring success to the farmers. And so this industry, the openness of free market became a beginning of a plague that ate the industry or the crop of sugar. And therefore, and this is just because the farmers were not really enabled by the authorities, and especially when the board was disbanded, and therefore nobody stood for the farmer for production, for marketing, and introduction of free market became a problem because many businesses or business people brought sugar that was cheaper than producing it in Kenya. And therefore, because everybody was free to buy, to sell sugar, it ate what was available, what was produced on the land. And therefore, the industry has collapsed because of that. So to revive it, it needs a very strong board, in my suggestion, that will keenly look into the technical know-how of the crop, and also look into the market, where to take this produce to, so that it enables the farmer to be able to manage replowing and replanting and buying the input. And also the government needs to really come along the farmer and subsidize the input, and also enabling the farmer to go back to the farm and plant this crop if the farmer should be able to or expected to produce any bags of sugar. And also a lot of research should be introduced so that there is modern technology, modern way of looking into the market, and modern ways of enabling the farmer to be able to be skilled according to the modern technical know-how that there is at this time. And so I support. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Senators, I shall defer calling the mover to reply since the mover is not around. And I shall also reorganize the order paper and go to order number 18. Next order.
Order number 18, the County Government Election Laws Amendment Bill, Senate Bills number 2 of 2024, second reading.
Senator Crystal Asige to move the motion.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Speaker, I beg to move that the County Government's Elections Law Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 2 of 2024, be read a second time. Speaker, this is going to be a very simple submission of this bill, Speaker. That's because it's a very simple amendment that I am proposing to this House to consider to move forward and support. Speaker, as you know, of course, I have had 4 other bills that I've passed with the support of senators in this House and are now in the National Assembly being considered. Those 4 bills are the Persons with Disabilities Bill, the Kenya Sign Language Bill, the Learners with Disabilities Bill, and the Startup Bill. And Speaker, if you remember, these bills are quite heavy, quite weighty and lengthy in terms of the provisions that I have put forward to support the different subject matters and the different interest groups therein. But Mr. Speaker, today I bring yourself and the House a very simple amendment bill which seeks to make county governments and specifically county assemblies more inclusive and more diverse so that persons with disabilities are fully and meaningfully represented in our local governments, Mr. Speaker. Speaker, the County Government's Election Laws Amendment Bill number 2 of 2024 seeks to amend the Elections Act, Cap 7, and the County Governments Act, Cap number 265, to increase representation of persons with disabilities, which is PWDs, in county assemblies by ensuring that at least 5% of members of the county assembly are PWDs. Speaker, the County Government's Election Laws Amendment Bill, this is geared, Speaker, to addressing the historical exclusion of PWDs from decision-making processes by ensuring adequate representation of PWDs in local governments, thereby ensuring that our voices are heard and our interests and needs are taken into account in decision-making across all 47 counties, Speaker. Mr. Speaker, recognizing the historical challenges faced by us, persons with disabilities, when participating in decision-making processes, Article 54(2) of our Constitution mandates the state to progressively ensure that at least 5% of appointive and elective positions are filled by PWDs across the country. Speaker, Article 177 of the Constitution provides for the composition of a county assembly. As you know, specifically, Article 177C provides that the county assembly shall include members representing marginalized groups, including persons with disabilities, that's PWDs, and the youth, as prescribed by an Act of Parliament. Speaker, with a view to implementing Article 177, 1C of the Constitution, Parliament has enacted 2 laws, as you will know, the County Governments Act and the Elections Act, that prescribe the number of members to represent marginalized groups in the assemblies. Speaker, whereas Section 7(1) A of the County Governments Act provides for 6 seats for marginalized groups, Sections 36(1)(f) and 36(8) of the Elections Act provide for 4 seats, which brings a little bit of confusion as to which one to then follow, 6 seats or 4 seats for marginalized groups. The independent the IEBC, that is, has been implementing 36(1)(f) and 36(8) of the Elections Act so far. So, Mr. Speaker, despite the statutory provisions that I've just laid out that provides representations for PWDs in county assemblies, if you look at today, what's happening, the representation of PWDs in county assemblies still remains tremendously low. As we speak, Mr. Speaker, there are approximately 21 counties out of the 47 that have no PWD representation whatsoever, which I believe is a mixture of mischief within the parties before elections and the relevant laws inadvertently creating gaps that create loopholes that are used to circumvent the Constitution. Our Constitution spells out, Speaker, the rights and freedoms afforded to us, persons with disabilities in this country, and Article 54 speaks clearly on the requirement of 5% representation of persons with disabilities at all levels in the country. To illustrate how these laws have created some confusion, Speaker, that has taken advantage of nominating bodies that leave PWDs across the country without adequate representation, is the provisions only give a figure for the nomination slots do not expressly allocate the seats allocated amongst the interest groups, Mr. Speaker. This means that they are just clustered together. They just say 6 seats will be given to marginalized groups or special interest groups, that is, Speaker. But they don't actually decluster those 6 to expressly specify how many of the 6 will be for PWDs, how many of the 6 will be for youth, how many of the 6 will be for workers, etc., Mr. Speaker. And therein lies the problem. Speaker, for instance, again, I've mentioned that about 21 counties lack PWD representation in the county assemblies, and there are counties which have no representation of youth nor other marginalized groups at all. The breakdown, Mr. Speaker, in my research, I want to show is as follows. Counties which did not nominate members to represent PWDs include Kwale, Kilifi, Taita Taveta, Wajir, Marsabit, Isiolo, Meru, Tharaka Nithi, Machakos, Makueni, Turkana, West Pokot, Trans Nzoia, Uasin Gishu, Baringo, Laikipia, Narok, Kericho, Nyamira, and, shockingly, the capital city, right here in Nairobi. None of the 21 that I've just mentioned, Speaker, again, have any PWD representation. And it's really a tremendous shame to know that even the capital city, which has the highest population of people, including PWDs, has nobody speaking for PWDs at the county assembly level. Counties which did not nominate members to represent the youth include Machakos, Makueni, Kirinyaga, Kiambu, Nandi, and Kisii. And then we go to counties which did not nominate any members to represent other marginalized groups, which include Garissa, Murang'a, Elgeyo Marakwet, Narok, Kakamega, and Kisii. And you'll hear, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure you've noticed, perhaps your county itself has been implicated in these statistics. Mr. Speaker, the bill therefore seeks to unbundle these seats envisaged under Article 177(1)(c).
Senator, it's now, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much. I also mentioned Kakamega, which I believe, Speaker, you are also residing, so it's still on the list, but I thank you for letting me know. So, Madam Speaker, the bill therefore seeks to unbundle the seats envisaged under Article 177(1)(c) of the Constitution, as well as Section 7(1)(a) of the County Governments Act and Section 36(8) of the Elections Act. This is to ensure that the PWDs across the country, youth and marginalized groups, get a chance to be nominated and represent their respective demos, Madam Speaker. Speaker, in light of the considerations I have outlined in this background, allow me to highlight the salient features of the bill. The bill has 3 clauses only, very simple. Clause 2 seeks to amend Section 36 of the Elections Act to provide that a political party will be required to submit a list that includes 2 candidates representing the youth, 2 candidates representing marginalized groups, and 2 candidates representing persons with disabilities, reflecting the number of wards in their respective counties.
Senator, what is the issue?
Madam Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 41, may I draw your attention to the fact that I look around and there's no quorum in the House.
Clerk. Sergeant at Arms, please ring the bell for 10 minutes.
KDIC, safer, stronger together.